Good evening, everyone. The time is 6:16 and I call this meeting of the Lexington School Committee to order. I am the chair of Lexington School Committee, Sarah Cuthbertson. With me are my colleagues, Larry Freeman. Here. Kathleen Lenahan. Jay. Here. And Deepa Kastani. Here. And we're also joined by our superintendent, Dr. Julie Hackett. Here. So happy first day of school, everyone. I know it was probably a really busy day for everyone, and I appreciate everyone coming out tonight. So I want to thank you all for being here, and I've heard it was a great first day of school from all of my friends, and my kid was at the high school, happy to be a sophomore and not the brand new freshman now. So hopefully they got the freshman where they needed to go today. So we have a lot of people signed up for Community Speak tonight. So before we do, I'm going to run down how Community Speak is going to work, and then we'll move into our agenda. Okay. So I'm just going to run down a lot of things. We have a lot of new people joining us for the first time, and I know we have a large number of people in the overflow room. So I want to go over some things for tonight's meeting. So first of all, I wanted to clarify the purpose, just to make sure we're very clear of why we're here tonight. So today is the most first day of school, as I just mentioned, for students in Lexington, and we're so excited to hear about the opening of school, among other school committee business matters. We have an item on the agenda tonight called District-Wide DEI Curriculum Update. We are in the process of developing a pre-K through 12 inclusive curriculum, and that has been a superintendent and school committee goal since 2018. The Serious Talks curriculum has been around even longer, with its development beginning in 2010 and its implementation starting at Bowman in 2016. I want to be clear that the DEI curriculum update on the agenda is just that. It's an update for the school committee on how we are progressing towards our goal of developing a pre-K through 12 inclusive curriculum. The DEI curriculum update agenda item is not intended to provide a space to debate whether or not we will have an inclusive curriculum, nor will we be responding to an anonymous petition that demands that we put a stop to the Serious Talks curriculum. We will have a number of staff members providing input into the discussion tonight, and we look forward to hearing from them. So for Community Speak, I'm going to run down how that's going to work tonight. It's going to be a little bit different. It is at the discretion of the chair. So I'm just going to go through how we decided to do it because there was a larger number of people who signed up this evening. So we welcome the public's input on all school-related matters, and it is our practice to listen and not respond for many reasons. So this is a business meeting. It's our meeting held in public. And while we certainly listen to everyone's input, and at times we may feel that there's a need to clarify something, if there's a lot of confusion out there, I might ask Dr. Hackett to weigh in or to clarify something. Typically, we don't respond or answer questions in the moment. Excuse me. This evening, we have approximately 70 people at last check to speak this evening who signed up. We have about 8 who were opposed to the curriculum, and the rest were in favor of the curriculum. So we'll get a lot, we'll have a lot of speakers this evening. Not everyone who signed up might get a chance to speak. We are going to extend the time, and I'll explain that in a second. So consistent with our local school committee policies and practices, I'm extending our 2 Community Speak opportunities so we can accommodate as many speakers as possible. Our agenda shows 2 15-minute community speaks, which is how we normally do it, but I'm extending the time. And so our first one will be 30 minutes. And the second session will be an hour. And that will be the amount of time that we will have for the public to provide input. In addition to doubling the time for community speak, we are limiting the length of speaking time to 2 minutes per person. Each speaker will be timed, which is always our practice. If you have written testimony, a good rule of thumb is to think about each page of writing in 12-point font, taking approximately 1 minute to read. In 2 minutes, you should be able to get through 1.5 to 2 pages of written text. Or if you're like me and you have way too much caffeine, you might go way faster than that. So perfect. Consistent with our current practice, we will be timing each speaker. We will be giving you a warning, 1 minute, 30-second mark, and you will be asked to stop speaking when your 2-minute time is up. If you are unable to finish what you intended, you're welcome to submit your written comments to us, and they will be distributed to all school committee members. So this evening, we also have overflow seating in the gym. The school committee meetings are hybrid, which provides the public with multiple ways to engage in our meetings and is really the most inclusive way for us to run our meetings. Our school committee meeting room is a small space, but as you see, this is wired for us to be able to have interactive Zoom capabilities as well. Just outside the office over there is the gymnasium. So if anybody needs to take a step out of this room, or you say it's too hot in here, or I need to take a walk, you can go over there and still hear the meeting. Although I think there are a lot of people in there, so that might be even busier. Our school committee meeting is being live streamed into that space. If you are in the overflow room right now and you have signed up to speak, what's going to happen is I'm going to list the first 5 speakers. So if you are in the overflow room, you would come over and stand outside the door to the school committee meeting room where you can still hear our meeting. And when it's your time to speak, you can come in and go to the podium to speak. When Lexington school community members are called to the podium to speak, please remember to state your name and address for the record. If you are a student, you do not need to state your name for the record. This is a public meeting that is much larger than usual. So we have 2 plainclothes Lexington police officers here to assist us. Some students have indicated that they would like to speak, which they are welcome to do. If anyone feels uncomfortable or unsafe, we encourage them to submit their comments in writing instead. Again, thank you everyone for joining us this evening, and we are looking forward to the discussion tonight. So that brings us to our first item on the agenda.
Madam Chair, if we could just remind everyone who's going to be speaking to speak loudly and clearly. We have a lot of people here and we all have different levels of listening and hearing ability. So we just want to be conscious of that. And please don't whisper and talk to your neighbor when someone is speaking, because it really interferes with people who don't have the level of hearing that you may have. So please be aware of that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Freeman. And for everyone listening and people who had signed up to speak, I do want to make people aware that there's at least one news outlet here from outside of Lexington here to record. So if anybody feels our LexMedia is recording, and that is always public. But if anyone feels less safe because an outside news outlet will be here, that is just fine. And you don't need to speak even if you signed up to speak. That brings us to our consent agenda. All right, Ms. Sani, you look like you're ready.
Okay, I move that we approve payroll and accounts payable warrant for June 16th, 2023. Payroll in the amount of $6,802,211.67. June 23, 2023, BMO warrant in the amount of $66,248.16. June 23, 2023, $2,388,815.31. June 30th, 2023, $42,398,166.77. 42 million. I'm going to read that again because I got that wrong. 42,398,166.77. June 30th, 2023. Payroll in the amount of $10,266,422.66. July 14th, 2023, $1,201,698.60. And then July 14th, 2023, $873,083.39. July 28, 2023, $1,604,472.01. July 28, 2023, $1,260,544.86. August 11th, 2023, AP warrant in the amount of $587,690.87. August 11, 2023, payroll in the amount of $1,224,402.35. August 25, 2023, BMO warrant in the amount of $44,486.02. August 25, 2023, AP warrant in the amount of $286,474.04. August 25, 2023, payroll in the amount of $940,785.77.
And Ms. J, can you make a motion on the minutes?
Yes, I move that the school committee approve the minutes from June 13th, 2023.
Second.
Okay,
One second.
Ms. Lanahan, can you make a motion on the field trips?
Certainly. I move to approve the LHS 11th and 12th grade students to Siena, Italy from April 13th, 2024 to April 20th, 2024. Those lucky students.
Yeah, that's it. Do you wanna?
Yeah,
I just wanted
to check in. Okay, and just one correction, team. So the June 30th, 2023 payroll in the amount of $2,398,166.77.
And Mr. Freeman, a motion on the entire consent agenda?
I move we vote to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Lanahan seconds, all in favor? And the consent agenda passes 5-0. That brings us to school committee member announcements and liaison reports. Would you like to start, Mr. Freeman?
Sure.
Sorry.
You know I'm shy, I don't want to.
It's so shy.
Nothing really to report. It's been a great summer. Great first day of school from my kids' perspective. It was more of a so excited to get back to the social life kind of thing. The only homework was to charge your Chromebook, so they were extremely happy about that. But I am excited to be back. It seems like we've been gone, I've been apart for so long, so just looking forward to a positive school year.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Ms. Lanahan.
So I will start, my announcements will start with what they'll probably always start with, reminding everybody to check out the LHS project website, new year. If you haven't checked it out, now would be a great time to start. There is a link to that website on the front page of the school committee's website. And it gives you information on how to watch school building committee meetings. You can watch them live online. You can watch a recording of them. You can read detailed minutes of the meetings. And we have our first community meeting, for the whole Lexington community, the evening of September 14th. There will be more information about that coming. So it's starting to get real. It's going to get exciting, and we're going to think about what do we want this school to look like, to be. It's going to be here longer than any of us, unless there's some real interesting advancements in science, I think. So I mean, there could be elementary kids here, so I'll take that back. But and my other announcement is just, so I'm the clerk of the school committee, which means I respond to the emails we get. So many of you have received a response from me. The important thing to remember from the clerk is I'm responding on behalf of the school committee, but I can't actually run and talk to everybody because that violates open meeting law. So so I have to respond to you in a manner appropriate. And I believe everybody who has sent us an email recently has gotten a response, I hope. If not, I apologize. And yeah, we're all caught up on that.
And I think this rivals like maybe the first round of COVID emails.
Yeah,
So thank you for being the clerk.
Yeah. So sometimes we go, weeks and nobody emails, and then we get a lot of emails.
Pull the short straw.
Thank you. Thank you for your service, Ms. Lanahan. Okay, Ms. J.
I think we're all excited that we're starting off a new school year. I hope everything went well for everyone today, first day of school. And yesterday we had our first in-person convocation with all the faculty and staff members and LPS at the high school auditorium. It was just wonderful to see everybody together again. And I just want to say to every staff member, how grateful we are for what you do day in and day out with our students. And it was just nice to see everyone there, hoping you've got a relaxed summer and are all refreshed and ready for a great new year.
Great, thank you. Ms. Ani.
Yeah, sure. Right, so I just want to give a shout out to recreation department as well as the facilities department, or is it it's the town DPW and the area around our schools, because I walk my dog around Fisk and they have done such a lovely job over there. They have cleaned up all the invasive vines, which used to have little blueberries that I was always worried that a child would pop in the mouth, and they have made that place look so inviting and clean. They've got rid of a bunch of poison ivy too. So a big shout out and thank you to the town side departments for making our schools look good. The other thing I want to invite you all and listeners to the September 13th Ad Hoc Transportation Committee's second public forum. This is regarding LexPress. You all know that LexPress is a town service that goes, it has 3-4 routes that run in town, and what we have been charged to do, the committee, the Ad Hoc Transportation Committee, is to look at LexPress because post-COVID, like every other town transportation system and other mass transportation systems, the ridership really has gone down. It's almost like people have forgotten what LexPress can do for them. So we're trying to get that back, and all in time before the next budget summit when we're going to be talking about budget matters for the next year. So invite you all to come. We will have recommendations, and we really need to get feedback from people and users of that service. That no.
What time?
Oh, yes, it's in the evening, 6:30 to 8:30. It's in Carey Hall. It's going to be on the Estabrook Hall, it's the lower level, but it's also going to be online. And the town website will have the information, and maybe I can ask the school site to also send out that information, because our students used to use it a lot, but they've sort of gotten out of the habit of using it because of COVID. Other than that, congratulations to all the new faculty, teachers, educators that have joined us, as well as on the start of the new year. It'll be a great year. Thanks, Sarah.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ani. So I'm just gonna echo what some of my colleagues said. Ms. Ani and I were able to attend the new educator orientation, was that last week? Only last week. It feels like so much has happened in that short amount of time, and it was wonderful to look around the room, to see so many colleagues that were familiar to each other, embracing brand new colleagues coming into the district. There was just great energy in the room this year, a lot of excitement. I know that it's always a stressful time and it's busy, but just seeing people kind of come together and look forward to all of the work that we have been doing and continue to do, and LPS was fantastic. So welcome to all of our new educators, and thank you so much to all of our returning educators, especially as you support the brand new educators to LPS. And the convocation yesterday, I just have to say, that was the most adorable thing that I've ever seen. The little kids on the stage, they were so, and we had a front row seat, so it was very nice. That was a lovely way to start the day, and it really helped me go throughout my day, just seeing that joy on their faces. Some of them, I think maybe their parents signed them up, but by the end they were also joyful, so that was great. They were having a great time, and I love their dancing as well. So thank you to everyone who made yesterday special, and our music educators who made that happen, and all of our performers too. So that brings us to our first session of Community Speak. I did want to mention, because I did not mention it before, is if you are joining us remotely and your name is called to speak, please raise your hand using the raise hand function in Zoom. And Ms. Kay will promote you to be able to speak. So just let me pull up my list here. So what I'm going to do, as I mentioned before, is I'm going to call the first 5 people in order, and if you are not in this room, please come to this room. If you're in Zoom, please raise your hand, and you will be able to speak. So, and then, yeah, and if you are coming from the other room, you're going to line up just outside the door. Okay, so first we have Amir Roach, then Amy Sellinger, Jennifer Bergen, Christina Lynn on behalf of HRC, and Ailish Severe, if I hope I said that correctly. So first we would have Amir. We're just gonna give it a minute in between just to make sure people can.
Oh, yeah, Sarah, we're gonna. It's all.
Yeah, yeah. So I see that Amir is with us on Zoom, and some people are queuing up, so Amir, go ahead, you can start, please state your name.
Hello.
Please state
Do you
your
hear
name
me?
for the record. Yes, we can hear you.
Ah,
We can hear you.
hello, everyone. Hi, my name is Simmer Roach. I'm from 78 Hancock Street in Lexington. I'm in the Fifth School District. I had a question, which, you said that you don't answer questions, but I had a question about the Serious Talks curriculum. And my question was, is there any information somewhere that we can access that talks about what went into the developing of the curriculum and how it evolved? Specifically, today I saw the PowerPoint presentation that said that, now kindergartners aren't going to be taking it as well. Yeah, so, well, yeah, let me cut it short then. That's essentially my question. Like, if there is any information on what went to developing this, like any peer-reviewed articles or like any institutions, universities weighing in, et cetera, that would be great. I mean, given that it caused so much debate, I'd like to understand the fact base behind the curriculum and what the intended outcomes are, how they're measured, et cetera. So more of a pedagogic question.
Okay, thank you so much. Next, we have Amy. Come on in.
Where do you want?
At the podium, that's good.
Hi, my name is Amy Selinger and I live at 197 Fallen Road. Want me to speak up? Tomorrow marks my family's very last first day of school in LPS. My children and our family have enjoyed a robust, challenging, and joyful education at Bowman, Clark, and LHS. We are forever grateful. While I am proud of all my children who accomplished academically, with the talent and support of the amazing faculty and staff, the social emotional growth they've experienced has been equally important to their success as young adults. I'm here to support the work LPS is doing in the Serious Talks curriculum, a program my children experienced in an early iteration and one I am pleased to see has grown beyond the Bowman Falls. Quite simply put, I believe this curriculum is critical for all young people, and with each passing day, the news confirms that it is actually life-saving work. I was reminded of this terrible truth when I learned about Lori Carlton, the shop owner in California killed just a few days ago for the act of flying a pride flag in front of her business. Terrible incidents seem to stack up day after day. As an educator myself, who has spent the majority of my 30+ year career teaching and working with high school students, our young people are constantly looking to adults to make meaning of their identities and the world in which we all live. They are paying attention and we need to do better.
30 seconds remaining.
Please don't be a part of creating a dynamic of fear, shame, and hate. Instead, join me in speaking up at this critical moment in our town and our nation's history in support of the Serious Talks curriculum and the world that our children will create using the kindness, understanding, and sense of belonging they learn in our schools through this age-appropriate and dynamic curriculum. Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have Jennifer.
My name is Jennifer Bergen. I teach at Diamond Middle School. It's my 30th year teaching at Diamond Middle School. And I'm actually here to read a statement from a high schooler who wished to remain anonymous. Hi, when I was in 6th grade, I tried to take my own life. I am not from here. I grew up in a small town elsewhere. This place didn't have the safe environment fostered in Lexington's elementary schools. It didn't have serious talks or any lessons on acceptance and tolerance. It did, however, have unadulterated intolerance, homophobia, and Christian, quote, love, end quote. As I grew, so did my hatred for the entire LGBTQ plus community, but I had a secret I didn't want to believe, a secret I wanted more than anything to be alive. I knew that if I told people, even my closest friends, who I really was, they would attack me. So I kept my mouth shut. Nobody really knew me, and I pushed those who wanted to away so they couldn't. I knew they wouldn't want to know the real me. In fourth grade, I left there and came to Lexington. I still felt alone. I couldn't focus at school, my grades were horrible, and I felt crushed. The point of all this backstory is that I still had a chance. I was in fourth grade. I could have had a year and a half's worth of comprehensive lessons teaching me that it was okay for me to be who I was.
30 seconds remaining.
The topics that the Serious Talks curriculum aims to include could have saved me. Instead, I almost ended my life to avoid the truth. Over time, with no help from this school system, I've learned to love myself. Since sixth grade, I've become an advocate for LGBTQ plus rights in the district. I've had multiple one-on-one meetings with Superintendent Hackett and discussions with the Lexington Human Rights Committee, and now I'm exhausted. I've spent years working to better this place so that no child has to go through what I did. And then I get this petition in the mail, a petition to protect.
You finish the sentence. and then-
Thank you. A petition trying to protect Lexington children from the education that I would have given anything for.
Thank you very much. Now we have Christina Lynn. Christina.
Okay. Is this loud enough?
Yes, good job.
Okay. Christina Lynn, 2 Eustis Street. I'm the chair of the Lexington Human Rights Committee, LHRC, and I'm reading an abridged version of a statement our committee approved by vote of 6-0 last Wednesday. The full statement's on our website. The LHRC, in pursuit of its mission to uphold a community that's free from bigotry, hatred, and intolerance, believes the Serious Talks curriculum aims for those same goals. We support its implementation across all elementary schools. What we know is discrimination is often based in the ideas rooted in falsehoods and stereotypes. It's through learning about the diversity of human identities that helps us build the capacity to be inclusive of all members. Our committee's privileged to host and partner on many programs with town institutions, government, and community organizations to dispel harmful and divisive myths and to find unity. Similarly, we've advocated for an inclusive curriculum at LPS because every student deserves a school environment where they can enjoy a sense of belonging, safety, and build the confidence to self-advocate. We're blessed to live in a community where different religions, physical abilities, languages, neurodiverse profiles, cultures, gender identity, family structures all converge across 10 schools. Our children show us that these are rich environments for friendship and bonding. Discussions about life, home, and family, all aspects of human identity are commonplace. Our schools are working to prepare students to navigate this world, equipping them with skills for interacting with people of differing identities.
30 seconds remaining.
Also important that schools support parents and caregivers when unfamiliar concepts are introduced. We appreciate Dr. Hackett's stated intentions to increase communication and support for parents seeking to better understand Serious Talks. It's our hope that genuine discourse between parents and district will ultimately support the inclusive environment we all seek. We have the power to build an inclusive community where all residents, especially students, can feel they belong. It doesn't come at the cost of who we are as individuals. It grows our capacity for humanity. Thank you.
And you can go to the podium, and I apologize if I said your name incorrectly, so please state your name for the record, and if you are not a current student, your address as well.
My name is Dusk Severe, or
Okay.
Severe, and I'm a Verizon junior at LHS. Dear school committee and the general LPS community, LPS students and graduates wish to extend our support for the Serious Talks curriculum as it currently exists. This curriculum is not only beneficial to our students and our community, but works towards Lexington's goal of diversity, equity, and inclusion within our school system. The petition to remove serious talks suggests that the curriculum is age inappropriate, but in truth, the serious talks curriculum introduces concepts like skin color, culture, religion, disability, and gender identity in age appropriate ways designed to meet our students' social emotional learning needs. Children learn about these concepts as they pertain to them and their classmates, not as complex social issues, nor with any explicit content. That this curriculum has the primary goal of teaching kindness and respect, which are values that LPS staff and students alike are proud to foster. We as students know that we experience better and more well-rounded education when we learn in supportive environments where stories like ours are acknowledged. Descriptions and goals of the Serious Talks curriculum have always been available to parents. Our town openly values diversity and open-mindedness, and these values are explicitly nurtured in our public schools. Blocking out important social issues such as LGBTQ+ identity does not prevent people from having said identities. We believe Serious Talks is a wonderful opportunity to discuss these identities in a safe and respectful context, as they are issues that will be encountered in students' real lives. For these reasons, we believe that reducing the Serious Talks curriculum would be a disservice to our
30
community.
seconds remaining.
We see this attack on the Serious Talks curriculum not only as an attack on the curriculum itself, but as an attack on the idea of teaching diversity and kindness in our schools. As community members that value compassion and inclusivity, we won't stand for this. We are proud to stand with Dr. Hackett, the school committee, and the Lexington Education Association in affirming the Serious Talks curriculum. This is a shortened version of the letter signed by 173 LPS students and graduates. Thank you.
Our next 5 speakers in order are Amy Jensen, Andrew Harris, Rena Mazur. Did I say your last name correctly? Okay, just wanted to make sure. I thought it's been a while. Shannon Davis, and then Amelia Settembre. So Amy Jensen, if you're in the other room and you would like to come here, you may. If you are at home and joining us via Zoom, please raise your hand. Go ahead, Amy, please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. I am Amy Jensen at 44 Tyler Road.
Amy, you're breaking up a little bit, so I might go to the next person and come back to you, okay? Okay, I'm gonna go to the next person and come back to you. We can't hear you right now. Okay, Andrew?
Yes, thank you. I'm Andrew Harris, 4 Grimes Road, Lexington. I'm the non-binary father of an Esterbrook first grader and an educator with a background in social emotional development in kids. Some people say that the topic of gender identity is too complicated for 6-year-olds to fathom. This is not the case. When I started using the term non-binary to describe myself, my daughter had already encountered folks with non-binary identities. The first time the term came up was when I was talking about a work colleague who uses they, them pronouns. I explained simply that my colleague didn't think the word boy or the word girl described them well, so they used a different word, non-binary. Pronouns, I told her, are words that we use to talk about someone when we don't use their name. Like when I talk about mama, I say I love her. Her is her pronoun. Thanks to the lessons she has learned in school, I know that my 6-year-old would be first in line to make a trans or non-binary kid in her classroom feel welcome and help her peers to figure things out. To kids, it's not complicated. All you have to do is be accepting and open and filled with love. Not every parent is well equipped to discuss these topics with their children. That is why we need teachers who are, especially in elementary school. Serious Talks was developed by experts and based in research. It provides a framework for teachers to discuss important topics, and I'm grateful that we have it here in Lexington. Thank you, members of the school committee.
Thank you very much. Okay, can we try Amy again? Go ahead, Amy, if you're ready.
Hi, my name is Amy Jensen. I live at 44 Tyler Road.
Okay. Go ahead.
And I am today speaking on behalf of my family. I have a 7th grader, a 5th grader, and a 2nd grader. And we are very much in acceptance of the LGBT community. We have many people in our family who are part of that community. However, given the current serious talks that happened with my 2nd grader, well, in 1st grade, we are now having an identity crisis because there was no talk about the fact that girls can be tomboys, that girls can like things that are blue or green. It was the way the curriculum was presented, I feel was not age appropriate. And yes, I do believe that we need to teach things about,
Are you cut out again, Amy? Okay, Amy, we'll come back to you again.
conversation.
Okay, go ahead. Now I can hear you. Go ahead.
I feel like there needs to be a conversation had about the fact that girls and boys can like things, whether that's pink or blue. And I think it needs to be handled in a much better way. So I would like to know the national statistics on how many places this curriculum has been taught and why LPS thinks that it's the best curriculum. I think there needs to be a national based study about this because I feel like at this age of first and second graders, it is causing some great confusion and
30
gender
seconds
identity.
Remaining.
And I feel like that in turn is going to do a disservice to our children here in Lexington and cause more of a mental health crisis than the pandemic and separating them from all the other children would. So I would like to see LPS pick up a national program or curriculum and show the statistics behind it and the longevity of what it actually does to these children.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Benson. Rita, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Rena Mazur, she, her, and I have been teaching at LHS since 2007. I'm here to speak in support of the Serious Talks curriculum and the broader DEI curricula and other DEI efforts that LPS has put in place over my 16 years here, I guess 17 as of yesterday. I am proud of and impressed with how far we have come in our schools to provide a safe and productive learning environment for all students. I have seen the school culture at LHS grow to be kinder, more inclusive, and healthier due to this work. Our DEI efforts, particularly under the leadership of Julie Fenn and Johnny Cole, have presented our students with honest, accurate, and age-appropriate information about how to understand their own identities, as well as those of the people around them. Our students learn to care for themselves and others while celebrating their differences. Queer students at LHS, according to the 2021 YRBS presentation, quote, face special health and safety risks with disproportionately high rates of bullying and harassment, sexual contact against their will, missing school due to not feeling safe, substance abuse, self-harm, suicide ideation, suicide attempts, and other adverse outcomes, end quote. DEI curricula and efforts aimed at greater representation for and understanding of this community literally make schools safer for this at-risk population. As an openly queer teacher at LHS myself, I have
30 seconds remaining.
with many of our LGBTQIA students over my years here. I have personally heard them speak about the importance of these efforts to them and their well-being at our school. I am proud to teach in a school system that promotes the acceptance and celebration of all identities in its culture, values, and curricula. Thank you, Superintendent Hackett, members of the school committee, fellow LPS faculty and staff, and the Lexington community for supporting this essential work.
And next we have Shannon Davis. We have Shannon. Is Shannon joining? Hold on, let me see if Shannon is. Shannon might not be here. So we'll go to Amelia. No. Amelia can go ahead. Welcome, Amelia.
Hello, my name is Shannon Davis. I live at 42 Peacock Farm Road in Lexington, and I have had a son in this school district for 8 years now. He went to Bowman, so we have a lot of experience with Serious Talks. Serious Talks is important because it teaches kids to talk about their differences and their similarities, and that's not just LGBTQ. That's everything from being a child of immigrants, having 2 dads, or living with your grandparents. It could be having a different religion than the other people in the class, or having a different skin color. And when they get to talk to each other about these things, it helps them become more kind and respectful. You can't just remove one section of serious talks because that's not fair. Everybody's differences and diversities and need to be included and discussed. Outside of Lexington, there are people who are killing each other over their differences. I really value living in this community where we talk to each other openly, where we accept each other and treat each other with kindness. So I would really like us to keep the serious talks curriculum, and I support the curriculum here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In this case, I think Amelia is joining us via Zoom. So Amelia, if you're still on Zoom, if you could raise your hand. Go ahead. I think it's under Mandy. Okay. All right, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Hi, thank you so much. So I'm a butch lesbian student at the LHS. I'm actually a senior this year. And I would like to say that as a student, the Serious Talks curriculum has been extremely helpful in sort of introducing what diverse identities are, not just in the LGBTQ community, although I think this is one of the strong points of the Serious Talks curriculum, but additionally, you see it in talking about race, among other things. So I think one of the main key points is that if you start off at a young enough level, kids have something where if they don't know enough about something, they fear it. I mean, that's a pretty common, I think it was a famous quote too, that you fear the unknown. And what Serious Talks does is it makes these things not unknown, and it allows to break down this type of fear. And what this fear breeds, if it's allowed to get to the higher levels, it breeds prejudice and it becomes dangerous. And those things are not things we want to have in our society. So even by what Serious Talks does is taking it down at the very lowest level to the younger children, saying like, hey, look, people are different sometimes, and that is okay. I think that's a very important thing for us to have just throughout the school system. And you can even see it as you get to the high school level and you see mature students who are able to interact with their peers and accept that not everyone is the same all the time. And so I just have to say that it would be pretty bad if we were to lose this aspect that gives us a critical look into our community, because it would lose out on so many different perspectives, and it would allow this
30 seconds remaining.
to be fostered, especially amongst other people, when you just don't know that somebody is different. And for myself, even, it's been very important to be able to participate in these talks at school and know that I'm not always seen as like the outside student, but rather just a different person, because in all ways, everybody is different from one another. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next 9 speakers in order are Sophia Ho, okay, Josh Belkeo, Maureen Haviland, Nicholas Sykes, and Delia Suvalis. Go ahead, Sophia.
My name is Sophia Ho. I live at 1010 Waltham Street, also known as the Brookhaven of Lexington, a senior community living place. 57 years ago, we moved to Lexington because of the good school systems. And after we settled in, I went to the library looking for books about China, on China, so I could read to my children. Finally, I found one. When I opened the book, I didn't know to cry or to laugh because the illustrations are for people wearing long gowns and with the front half of the head shaved and with the braid in the back. That's typical of the Qing dynasty. China became a republic since 1912. That book must have been written 100 years ago. But right now, if you walk into a Carey Library, you'll be surprised because we have a large sections of Chinese books on China, about history, written by Chinese. That's because our directors is so forward-looking. After our son went to Estabrook, he came home one day and said, "Mom, what are we?" "What do you mean?" "Well, Mary is a Protestant, Joe is Irish, and David is Jewish. What are we?" So my mother answered, said, "We're Chinese." "No, Mom, we're not. We're Americans." But my son started saying, I know, we look different. You don't
30
look like
seconds
friends.
remaining.
So kids have these questions like that. Where is better than to learn it from classroom? Today is my birthday. I'm 88 years old. Children had a Zoom party for me. They told me that you must tell people that we can't have a party today because I have a very important meeting. So they, all three generations gathered on the Zoom program. I'm very
2 minutes.
touched.
You finish the sentence, finish that sentence.
I just want to tell you that they were educated in Lexington. I want to thank our superintendent, school committee meeting, and the dedicated teachers. With all of you, thank you.
Thank you, happy birthday. Now we have Josh. Welcome, please state your name and address for the record. You can stand at the podium.
Hi, everybody. My name is Josh McHale, 37 Elder Street. So Serious Talks is great, right? Like every kid should feel safe and included. The issue that I have is a sexual curriculum that's within Serious Talks. As an example, this is a tweet from somebody that is within the Lexington school system. It says, 4th grade students in Miss Archibald's class could clearly articulate the gender identity is to me and why it's important to use non-binary language in describing people we don't know. But then there's sexual orientation, who we love, who we're attracted to. And I just don't understand why we have to have that conversation with 6, 7, and 8-year-olds, right? Maybe I'm failing to see why. And we haven't come together as a community to discuss this. Instead, if we have a different opinion, then we're just tossed into this anti-LGBTQ bucket, right? Because that's easier than just bringing everybody together to have a conversation about this curriculum, which is woven into, right, said curriculum. So we don't know what's being taught to our kids. And in the superintendent's note, it clearly stated in here that ultimately parents have the right to opt out through homeschooling. Section 32A explains that activities and materials designed to promote tolerance and respect for individuals, including recognition of differences in sexual orientation without further instruction in physical and sexual implications, do not trigger the notice of an opt-out provision of Section 32A. Essentially,
30 seconds
I have the
remaining.
right to know what's being taught to my kid. And if I don't like it, homeschool my kid. And to me, that's crazy. Like, I want to know the curriculum, get ahead of it, read it to my son. I read every single one that was on the 1st grade one to him already, and we discussed it as a parent and a child. But now I don't have that option. So that's my stance as to why I'm upset, as you can clearly see. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Maureen, Ms. Kay, I think she's joining us via Zoom. Welcome, Maureen. Whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Maureen Haviland, and I'm a teacher at Lexington High School. And I'm here to finish reading the comment that was started earlier by a Lexington High School student. I asked the parents of Lexington to think of the children you're trying to protect. Ask yourself, is your outdated ideology worth more than their lives? Your vote against the teaching of tolerance today could very well cause the death of an innocent child who just wanted to feel belonging. Whether it's your kid or your kid's best friend dealing with this, shouldn't they have access to information and empathy? I cannot stress this enough. The kids who are hurting or killing themselves over this can come from any background. They can be from any race, gender, religion, anything. Straight A's or straight F's. If you want your kids to stay kids, stay smiling, stay alive, support the Serious Talks curriculum. I'm now going to continue. I'm sorry?
No, sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
I'm going to continue with a comment from a different student. at LHS, finding my community was incredibly helpful and encouraging. We encourage kids to find what sports and activities they like and socialize with people who share these.
30 seconds remaining.
Why should this be any different? School should prepare students for the real world, and that includes opportunities to find like-minded people. In the real world, gay people exist. Knowing that isn't going to turn anyone gay, someone either is or isn't, and knowing there's another option might prompt a realization, but it's always something innate to who the person is. I fervently believe it is crucial that everyone knows they can be whoever they want to be.
2 minutes.
Stifling that information is nothing less than a failure for the next generation.
Great, thank you. Next, we have Nicola, and Ms. Casey is joining us on Zoom. Go ahead, Nicola, whenever you're ready.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Thank you. I am one of the co-chairs of the PTA-PTO President's Council. I have a statement to read that is supported by the presidents of the Bridge, Bowman, Diamond, Fisk, Harrington, Clark, Estabrook, Lexington High School, and Mariah Hastings High School. Elementary school, sorry. We all support the LPS educators' efforts to develop and implement curricula that promote inclusion, no matter the race, color, culture, religion, or gender identity. We applaud our Lexington educators for their tireless commitment to the well-being of every one of our students. Serious Talks is a key part of that commitment. We're proud of our Lexington teachers and administrators for investing in the development of cohesive curricula that teach our children the various visible and invisible identities we hold in the communities to which we belong. These lessons explore important concepts such as what it means to be inclusive and what negative stereotypes and biases are. The lessons promote tolerance of all identities in the community to which we belong. This means identities of students, teachers, staff, parents, neighbors, business owners, and every other person who makes our Lexington community such a special place to live. We understand that there are members of our community with concerns. We're eager to be a bridge between all stakeholders and the schools, with the superintendent and designated DEI community input team members leading the dialogue.
30 seconds remaining.
In signing this statement, we express our unified support of our educators and their unwavering efforts to ensure the inclusion and well-being of all the various invisible and visible identities within our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next we have Delia. Delia, if you're joining us via Zoom, you can raise your hand. Okay, I don't think Delia is joining us right now. We'll do one more. We'll do one more to round out this community speak. Yes. So Amy and Robin.
Hello, we are Amy Moore and 22 Hamblin Street, sorry, I do live here. We are Amy Moore and Robin Struzak, the co-presidents of the Lexington Education Association. A Substack published on August 23rd stated, LPS think that they can parent better than you, mom and dad. What are you going to do about it? Do we think that we can parent better than you? No. But we believe in creating a school community which is safe for all students and their families. We hope that what you will do about it is to support what we do and help us create a more accepting, loving world and school community.
We all belong is one of LPS's core values. All, not some, not just the ones that seem like me, all. To that end, learning acceptance and respect about any group of people is essential in order to progress as a society. Gay people exist. Trans people exist. Non-binary people exist. Your children have friends who may come from a family with 2 mothers or 2 fathers. Your children have friends who may have family members who identify as non-binary. Perhaps your children have friends who identify as non-binary themselves. Acknowledging the existence of human beings is not sexualizing children.
Supportive schools save lives. In public schools across the country and among the LGBTQ+ students, 90% experience harassment in school. Nearly 2/3 report feeling unsafe. 30% report missing school. Suicide ideation and serious attempts are 3 to 5 times more likely for those children.
30 seconds remaining.
Those students who attend schools that are supportive and inclusive of LGBTQ people enjoy a more positive school environment, report feeling safer in school, and experience less harassment. Transgender, non-binary young people who feel as if their identity and pronouns are understood and respected reported lower rates of attempting suicide. That should mean something to all of us.
We thank the LPS leadership and school committee for the empathetic support of the Serious Talks curriculum. We steadfastly support our colleagues who wrote the curriculum, our colleagues who teach the curriculum, our students and family who benefit from this curriculum. Education is not indoctrination. No child is too young to learn acceptance and others' right to exist.
And that brings our first session of Community Speak to a close. Our second one will be later in the meeting. If you look at our agenda, that brings us to our superintendent's report. Dr. Hackett.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I would have to say that this is an interesting way to start a new school year. But one of the things that I do want to point out is that there is an awful lot of love in the community and in the room. And I feel really blessed to work in a place where people are supportive of our teachers and our students, most especially. And to the students who spoke through other people, your words and your messages are so powerful. And there was a former student who spoke here as well. And I really appreciate the comments from everyone, but especially them, because I think that for us, the most powerful voices come from the students. They teach us in many ways, and we're just grateful to learn from them. So we have congratulations and celebrations. Most of that was covered in some of your comments, so I don't have to go over it again, but we had a great new educator orientation. We had a fun opening day of school. The convocation was a blast. We are grateful to the 125 or so students who came to school early to be on the stage and perform, and to all the parents who helped us get them there. It was phenomenal. And we had some super talent too. We have important back to school information for families. We have free school lunch for everyone in Massachusetts from now until, yes, that deserves a plug. And it's my understanding that it looks like it's moving forward always. So once again, Massachusetts is ahead of the curve in terms of what we're able to provide. And it will make a difference to so many kids, even kids in our community as well. We have a school calendar update for you. I'm really hoping that we can leave the calendar alone. That is totally your call. It's not my call. You'll remember that we brought you one copy of the calendar, and then somebody said, uh-oh, we forgot this. So we brought you another copy of the calendar. You voted it twice already. There is more information in there about Veterans Day and how different communities are celebrating it. The municipal side is taking off a day that we actually have as a work day. Just want to point out to everyone, we are getting out early this year. That is phenomenal. It will be so nice come June. Never happened. Some people aren't even starting school until Labor Day. We started today. So I would just say, like, let's just ride this and move forward. But if you feel differently, we can definitely revote the calendar. My only concern would be that people make plans already based on it. We said it was set, so it could be challenging to change it. I'll pause in case there's anybody who wants to discuss further.
So what is your expectation from us? Like, do we need to vote again, or we need to do it again, or?
I'm really hoping you won't.
I don't know what
Yeah.
what this is leading to.
This means that if you want to revote it for a third time and have the day off consistent with other communities, you can. It's not required because we checked and made sure that we're doing things that we're supposed to do. It's observed on a Saturday. We're good to leave it alone. Just understand, and it's important for the community to understand that people will be off on a day that we'll be here. It's lined up with LLT, I think, on that day. The town offices will be closed that day, we'll be in session. And then I also want to point out that when we develop the calendar, we get input from all of the unions. We make sure that everybody sees the copy of the calendar. In fact, we sent it out ahead and nobody.
I'm sorry, there's a disturbance out there. I just
Okay.
wanted to make sure that Dr. Lyons
Okay.
is handling it, if she needs one of us to.
You discuss the calendar, I'll be right back.
Okay, I think they're now going outside, so.
On the agenda later, so should we just discuss that?
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it was loud and I wasn't sure if there was an issue that one of us needed to answer your question.
Oh, my question, so is the town celebration of Veterans Day on Veterans Day? So like, you know, the ceremony that we have in Cary Hall
I think that is on the,
on Veterans Day?
yes, I
Right.
believe so.
Okay. And I'll just add, you can't possibly have any Irish ancestors. That jinxing you just did about we're gonna get out. Anybody wants to know why we have a million snowstorms? Anyway.
Although I do get to call it.
It's
There's
true,
a little
guys.
control in the ship.
Anyway, so as long as we can, anybody who wants to go to the Veterans Day observances can still do that on
Yes.
Veterans Day, that's
Yes.
fine with me.
So in the curriculum memo, just so you know, it says, we are seeking a determination about the observance of Veterans Day. Traditionally, in crafting the calendar, we consult the Mass Legal Holidays list on the Secretary of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts website. Veterans Day is celebrated on November 11th every year, and this year that date falls on a Saturday. According to the state guidelines, Saturday holidays are observed on Saturdays, while Sunday holidays are observed on the following Monday. With this information, the LPS academic calendar was prepared without a day off for staff and students to observe the holiday, as the observation falls on a non-school day. However, since the calendar was created and voted on, we have learned that several districts, Brookline, Newton, Wellesley, and likely others, are in fact closing schools and offices on Friday, November 10th in observance of Veterans Day. And this is one of the drawbacks when we do the calendar early, but it's good to get it out early and get it out ahead of time. The Lexington town offices are closed that day as well. The federal government's Office of Personnel Management offers this guidance for federal employees. Most federal employees work on a Monday through Friday schedule. For these employees, when a holiday falls on a non-work day, a Saturday or Sunday, the holiday is usually observed on Monday if the holiday falls on Sunday, or Friday if it falls on Saturday. If the school committee would like to observe Veterans Day on Friday, November 10th, in line with federal employee guidelines, the calendar would be updated as follows. Schools and offices would be closed on Friday. A different date would be identified for the district professional learning day. With schools closed but staff reporting, November 9th would likely be a date for rescheduling, though the decision would certainly be made with input from all of you. And the last day of students would be Friday, June 14th, if no cancellations. If you want to observe it on Saturday, November 11th, in line with the Massachusetts guidelines, the current 23-24 calendar would not change.
Thoughts? I'm fine with keeping the calendar.
I mean, I'm also fine with keeping it the way it is, but if other people want to bring this up to vote on it, we would need to vote on it the next meeting, correct? Yes.
I'm also fine keeping calendar.
I'm fine with it too, because even though federal employees sign it off, it's federal holiday, the state is clearly saying that for our state, they are establishing a Saturday holiday on a Saturday. So I'm good with that.
And just repeat it for me again, I'm sorry. So the town is gonna be closed, but we're gonna be open,
For professional development day.
professional development. I mean, I'm fine with the calendar the way it is. I would like to have some input from teachers, how they feel about that change in the schedule. That would be my only, engagement is what do teachers think? Do they want that day off, or are they fine with getting out earlier at the end of the school year? I mean, I just know personally, I would be like, well, I'd rather get out earlier in June. But I would love to hear their feedback at some point or something, you know, saying this is what they think and.
Knowing what I know about calendars, it's going to be a mixed bag. People will have different
Okay.
views and feelings depending on their personal situation, so it's a tricky one to gauge, but
Yeah.
we
I'm
can,
sure it is,
we can
and-
ask our co-president, their best, not on the spot, later, their best sense of.
Just
where
give us some
people are.
general feedback on what teachers, how the teachers are feeling about it. But that's my stance.
And it is the case that all students have that as a day off, and that it's only for the staff professional.
That's right.
That's coming in, so the public shouldn't be confused.
Right.
If we're not making a decision about when students do or do not come in, it affects staff only.
For that day. It
For
would at
that
the end of
day,
the- Yeah,
correct.
yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you'll thank us later, I feel like, but
Mm.
we'll we'll play it out and we'll get more input. Thank you for that. And then we can always take it up at another school committee meeting. School building committee update was given by Ms. Lenahan. For everyone listening, I just want to underscore the date. That is our first town hall style meeting for our new Lexington High School project. So save the date, September 14th. At 7 PM at Batten Hall. We're going to be sending more information. There's a link to minutes, agendas, and recordings in the report, and things are getting real. So it's getting very exciting. We're in the process of hiring a designer. So that's the next step of the way. We have an OPM, Owner's Project Manager. We'll be looking at a designer selection panel where 3 people from Lexington, that would be the town manager, me, and the director of public facilities, will go to the MSBA. We're in the process of reviewing portfolios now, and looking at different proposals from architects. We will sit with 13 other people, so there are 16 votes when we go to get a designer, and we will be outvoted. There's Shingmin Shah, who's on our committee as well. And we typically, the way the process works is they give a lot of credence to what the community wants and how they see the designer fitting with the community. So we're hoping that will remain true, and we'll get a designer soon. And then you'll see November, December timeframe where we're really starting to put ideas to paper and drawings and things like that. I want to also commend the school committee now and previous members for your foresight and getting together a master planning committee. We got a lot of that legwork done through that process. It's so nice to be in the position that we're in, and it's an exciting time. We have a bunch of new leaders joining our team, so I just shortened it so that you can see who's with us and who's new. Some of these we've talked about before, some of them we haven't, but I'm gonna just read them off to you. Not sure if they're out there in the audience, so we can have Julie Kay take a peek, and if they are, maybe we could promote them just to say a quick hi. And if we don't see them today, we'll make sure that you see them at some of our events. So we have Estabrook Assistant Principal, Dawn Marie Ailes, K-5 Social Studies Curriculum Coordinator, Aisha Banda, K-12 Assistant Performing Arts Coordinator, Angela Carpenter, 6 through 9 Science Department Head, Gita Kaka, LHS Interim Principal, Andrew Baker, LHS Interim Associate Principal, Dan Melia, and LHS Interim Dean, Patrick Larkin. And I was gonna write a whole bunch of stuff about all of them, and much of it was the same, so I'm abbreviating just to say they're all fantastic. We are so lucky to have them, and we're going to have a good year, a great year. And there's Dawn Marie.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, welcome.
I just wanted to say thank you. I am so excited to be here in Lexington and thrilled to be at Estabrook serving as the assistant principal. And if yesterday was any indication how our year is going to go, it's going to be fantastic. So thank you.
Awesome, welcome. And I just left Estabrook, so it was my I've been there for 10 years. I just missed you. So, well, welcome to Lexington.
Thank you.
And Angela, are you here to sing a song for us, or do you have?
I will.
I know
I
you
will
have, a couple hours since yesterday's performance.
I will not sing a song, but I just want to say thank you so much. I'm really excited to be in this new position and to be able to serve in this capacity and to support the performing arts. So thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Oh, that's Geetika.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kirika Kao. I'm the middle school department head, science department head. I've been an educator in Lexington for the last 23 years and grateful to join this new position and really feel privileged that I can step into this role. Lexington's given me a lot of opportunity to grow, and I'm grateful for all of it. Look forward to a great year.
Thank you, Geetika, and welcome.
Thank you.
I think that's it. I think that's everyone who's joining us.
All right, very good. And for the people who aren't here, we'll make sure you meet them along the way, as I said. LPS Core Values Celebration, we're planning for the year. We try to have 3 of these a year, and we have one coming up on October 24th in our central office gymnasium. There's a nomination form. The process is outlined. We encourage people who want to recognize somebody really outstanding in the community to join us, and it's a fun time and a way to bring the district together. And then last but not least, I have an update from the Serious Talks curriculum. And I think what I want to do before we get into the presentation is to fill you all in, because we haven't had a chance to talk about this, with how things sort of unfolded at the end of last year and how we find ourselves here at the beginning of the school year on the first day talking about this topic. So you remember last year I went to all of the PTOs and met with each of the 9 PTOs, because we don't have a PTO, formal PTO, at least at LCP. And then the reason I do that, I always meet with PTO members at the monthly meeting, but I wanted to go to the school-based meetings as well. And I have done that throughout the years, but not all 9 in one year. I wanted to make sure that I'm hearing what's on parents' minds and I'm opening lines of communication and I can be responsive in that way. So I went to all of the PTO meetings. Most of the conversation last year focused around elementary world languages, the switching of start times, which was early on in the process last year. We were talking about that, and contract negotiations, which is no surprise because that was a big part of last year. I did not hear anything on the Serious Talks curriculum until I got to Estabrook, which is in late May. So they were one of my last schools that I got to. In late May, I was there and we had a very small group of people, and actually Drew Harris was here a moment ago, but he is the one of the co-presidents. So he was there, and we had about maybe 6 to 8 people in that group. And maybe three or four of those people in the group said, we have concerns about the Serious Talks curriculum, we want to talk about it. So we spent some time processing, and it didn't feel like the conversation was done. And people were expressing that they wanted to make sure that their voices were heard. And that's always of interest to me and to us. So I said, why don't we meet another time? Why don't we finish this conversation so that we can really explore this? Some people were asking to have the meeting at night. Again, this was late May. We were almost finished with an entire school year. And so we were trying to figure out how do we get it done in the last few weeks of school. So what we ended up doing is we didn't have a night meeting. We had a meeting during the day. We brought about 40 people together. So it was a 9 o'clock meeting, but we had great attendance, which was fantastic. I was concerned about having the meeting in June. It was Pride Month. I was worried that people may feel like this is a hard time to be talking about identity and the curriculum and so forth. And so I processed that with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. That would be Jeff Parati.
I'm sorry, it's the same person back in another 2 of them. And I just want to make sure Dr. Lyons has support up there.
No, they're all
other
set.
people
Yep,
there?
yep,
Okay.
we're good.
I'm just making
So,
sure. 'cause I can-
1, 2, 3, all eyes on me.
Sorry.
Here we go. All right, so, there are plenty of people out there checking out the situation.
You know,
and we
I'm
have,
on a bear for everybody, so
yep,
I
we
just,
have plainclothes police officers out there, they will handle it, I'm 100% confident.
I just wanna make sure that anybody coming in with questions can also have their questions.
They also, there's a request that people in the overflow room just be a little quieter because people can't hear.
Yeah.
So if you could just make the request loudly.
Yeah, so if you are in the overflow room and you are talking, can you please stay quiet so that people in the overflow room who are here to attend the meeting can hear the meeting, just as if you were in this room, and we will try to speak up as much as we can. Thank you.
Very good. Now, back to the lesson. No, I'm just kidding. So we had the meeting with the small group meeting, that was the end of May. Most people would have waited, quite honestly, and all summer and had a meeting in September. I didn't do that because I wanted to make sure that people who were expressing that they didn't feel heard were heard. So we had a meeting in June, 40-something people came. This was the second meeting that I did with Estabrook. Some of the people who spoke and expressed concerns attended that meeting. And we also had many individual conversations with people who attended that meeting as well. In that meeting, I invited Jeff Parati, who is the director of the Safe Schools Initiative for the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. I also worked with our team and co-planned that meeting with him so that we were making sure that we were taking care of our community and people felt safe and supported in the process. Mr. Parati and a trans man who is not from Lexington, that was written in the petition, that was not accurate, came to the meeting to talk about their experiences. They did talk for about 40 minutes at the beginning of the meeting, which upset some individuals at the meeting. And the communication that went out gave the impression that the meeting was over and they didn't get to speak. What actually happened was I spent 2.5 hours with people. So I wanted to make sure that we had plenty of opportunity. I actually went around a circle of 40 people and said, would you please weigh in if you feel comfortable? Do you have any feedback for us? And I do think that the people who are expressing concern when they say they want to know more, that's a real valid concern that we should take very seriously. We should make sure that the communication is such that people are not surprised by it. What was interesting in this conversation was that some of the people we were hearing from had not yet attended our schools. So they had children who were rising kindergarten students. They hadn't been in the schools. And for us, that was a good part of communication because we got to say, oh, we need to do outreach even earlier than we expected. And we need to be clear about how we're going to have school-based conversations. So it ended up, in my view, being a very good conversation. Shortly after, there were suggestions of us not being transparent and things of that nature. And in the communication that I sent out, I think there's a really important distinction between transparency and agreement. We had a lot of conversation. We listened a lot in multiple venues, individually and in group sessions. And we did not always agree with the point of view of others. There's also a national movement about people outside of public schools making decisions about curriculum. That is on the minds of nearly every educator everywhere. That is a significant concern. We are maintaining that it's our professional responsibility and obligation to develop a curriculum for all kids that may or may not align with a school, with a parent's beliefs about how we should do it. And I think the Mass General Law, chapter 32, section 32, whatever it is, was referenced. That was referenced in the anonymous petition that we received. So I addressed it in the communication. And it's very clear on when and how people opt out, and it has to do with when we explicitly teach around sex education and things of that nature. That's not how we do things here. And part of this, and I truly believe this, is not understanding exactly what we do. So I think sort of lifting that up for people, which we will do tonight so that they can see, is an important thing. But I also want to underscore the fact that we have done a ton of communication. I don't want this to give the impression that we're not communicating. We are. If people tell us they want more, we can give them more. We give updates here. They do school-based conversations. We send out information. We preview very difficult and challenging topics by sending letters to the community. We have Katie here in the room with us who does a lot of that work and does a fantastic job. I also want to say that this is not new. This has been around before I ever got here. And this is like an amazing thing about Lexington. Started the development of Serious Talks. The development started in 2010 at Bowman. The implementation started in 2016. So it has been around for decades. And also, sort of the irony in all of this is we're talking about how do we pull this all into one very large pre-K-12 inclusive curriculum. And that's our effort. That's what we're working on. So you are going to see Serious Talks integrated into a much larger umbrella of inclusive lessons. So that's kind of the rundown. There's a ton of peer review. We hear this criticism a lot. And honestly, since I've been here, I'm going into my 6th year. Anytime that there's a challenging conversation, people say, show me your peer reviewed research. We have plenty of that. There's stuff out there. We can certainly show that. We have statistics in the YRBS data. We can't really find national based studies about our own curriculum yet, but we can certainly explore like, what is its effectiveness? That's totally reasonable to say, is what you're doing working? To me, the greatest data points are the 100 or so people who are signed up who are showing up in support. And they represent many groups of people, not just individuals. So I say that's proof enough. And the greatest proof, of course, is what our children tell us, and how to hear graduates come back. How powerful is that? And talk about like what this meant for them. Had one parent who said to me, you know, my child went to summer camp this year, and at summer camp, they had a lot of problems with bullying and harassment, and the camp counselors were working really hard. This was in a different state to try to get understanding for the kids. I think it was a middle school aged camp. And this parent said, I was so proud because my daughter had those skills and had that language to be able to not get caught up in that. And, you know, that's what we're fighting for. That's why this is important. So to the members of the LGBTQ community and everybody for whom this might be really hard or even triggering, I want you to know you have our full support. We are unapologetically committed to every child, every staff member who needs us, to all our differences. I loved what Lex Pride wrote about. This is about everybody. This is about every religion, race, person, ability, whatever. This is about all of us. And I am heartened tonight about the showing of support. And I really, really am grateful to this community. So I am going to clapping for myself by mistake, but I was looking at Mabel. I did not mean to do that. I was clapping for Mabel because she's just cute. I'm going to turn it over now to our team, and they are going to take you through the curriculum development. The purpose is not to debate whether or not, as Chair Cuthbertson said earlier, it's not to debate whether or not we're going to do this. We're doing this. We will do it even better as we go along. We will communicate better about it. The purpose is really to bring you up to speed on the questions that people have so that we can answer them, give you examples, and show you how we're progressing for our K-12 DEI curriculum. Did I stall long enough to get you all in here? This is good. Okay. Just, is that one empty?
I think Rina's probably coming.
Okay. Oh, no, let me do this. You're good. Yeah. I mean, slides was over, you have this one. Whatever you'd like us to do.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much to the school committee for having us here. I'm Caitlin Ahern. I'm the Director of Elementary Education. And I'm joined with some wonderful members of our team. I'll go to Johnny and let you each introduce yourselves as we go.
I'm Johnny Cole. I'm the Director of Equity and Student Support.
I'm Julie Fan, I'm the Assistant Coordinator for the Health and Wellness for the district.
And I'm Katie O'Hare Gibson. I'm the Assistant Principal at Fisk and also the Elementary K-5 DEI Coordinator.
So, Julie, if you could go to the next slide, please. We just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that this has been the work of educators for a very long time here in Lexington. We have had teachers and principals leading the charge for more than a decade. And at the same time, this is work that is really personal. Usually I'm up here to give a presentation on math or school calendars or something that is a little bit separated from who we are as individuals. So we wanted to acknowledge that this evening's presentation impacts people differently in this room and in our community. And I want to just say that we are committed to practicing empathy and compassion as we have this conversation, and we're all working for what's best for our students.
Excuse me, those of us who are hard of hearing, could you speak louder, please?
Sure, and I'm wondering about the overflow room too. The hearing is difficult out there, so I will do my best to speak louder, and if you get any indications that it's not loud enough, let me know.
And this meeting is being recorded, so if you perhaps missed something, you can go back and watch those sections in the recordings.
And I'll use my best teacher voice. So our goals for today, and Julie, if you want to go on to the next slide, our goals for today, we are excited to give school committee and the community a more detailed understanding about why we do what we do, why we are so committed to this work in our schools and especially our elementary schools. We want to share some of the history around how did we get here, and looking at the next steps. Dr. Hackett just spoke about the vision and the ongoing process we are undertaking to have a district-wide DEI curriculum that's a consistent experience for all students. And I also want to dive in a little bit to serious talks. It's been a hot topic. We want to take the opportunity tonight to give folks a little bit of a deeper understanding of what that curriculum looks like and how do we have these difficult conversations with even our youngest students. So we're going to go through why this work's important, what's going on in the district, and a little bit more into serious talks. Next slide, please. So this timeline, it starts in 2018, but I think people who have been around in the district for a while know that it actually starts way before then. But for our purposes tonight, in 2018, shortly after Dr. Hackett came on board, the Administrative Council produced our paper on diversity, equity, and inclusion, our call to action. We were responding to the data that was showing disparities, particularly for our students of color. And it was identified in that paper that one of the goals that we would take on to try to solve these disparities, to close these gaps, was to educate all students to be inclusive, racially literate, and culturally proficient. And at that time, we already had a whole bunch of different things going on across the district to try to do this work. And so even in the paper, it was noted that we need to look at everything we're currently doing, figure out what are the best pieces of all the things, and how do we bring it together for our students. That was followed up by the strategic planning process. And in that process, we used the Keep, Lose, Dream, Innovate protocol. And we went around to every school and we talked to students and staff and community members over in the community center. We had meetings and poster papers up on the walls. And through that process, it came out in all of our data streams that people had heard about this Bowman Serious Talks curriculum. People had experienced it either as parents of students who had been through it, as teachers in Bowman, as teachers in the district hearing about it from their colleagues. And we saw that come up over and over, that people said, can you expand this? Can you take this to scale? Can all students have access to this curriculum? So it ended up in our, one of the strategies that we thought we could use to address the goal of addressing and narrowing equity gaps for students. So that was in the strategic plan. It was followed up the next year by the school committee and superintendent collaborative goals that said this DEI curriculum would be a focus point. We established a community input team to help us lay the foundation for what it would look like. So yeah, it came in the superintendent and school committee goals. The call for the DEI CIT community input team went out. We had over 100 people from the community express interest in being part. And I wasn't part of the selection process, but I think it got down to 30 or so people trying to be as representative as possible from everybody who expressed interest to participate on the DEI community input team. And so then over the course of, gosh, I'm gonna get mixed up on my years, 21 to 22, this team met. Johnny did the lion's share of the work. Jennifer Gaudette and I helped. I was on maternity leave for a good portion of that. And the group came out with a set of recommendations in their final report. Next slide, please. So this is from the DEI CIT final report. And I thought the language was really powerful for the why. Why do we think this work is so important? Why are we committed to this? I'll give folks a second to read. Oh, it might be difficult to read in the other room. That's a fair point. All right. We believe students need common language to better discuss issues, think critically, developing an understanding of the world they live in. Doing so, they gain practice with having challenging conversations, empowering them to have meaningful dialogue about any issue they encounter as they make sense of the world. Students should also take pride in their own identities and feel appreciation for others. We are preparing students for the world we are currently in and the world they will enter upon graduation from LPS. All students will come across individuals with multiple identities. Knowing they are seen and heard is just as important as them seeing and hearing others. Through all of this, so we started back in 2018, we started before then, but really in 2018, it came out of our call to action. It got into the strategic planning process. It came from the school committee and the superintendent, all saying, this work is really important. We need to figure out how do we make this happen for all students and not just the ones who had the teachers who were leading the charge and creating this curriculum and these lessons for their students. I have to peek at my notes to make sure that I said everything I wanted to say about this. The other piece that isn't in this quote, but I do think is important for the community to point out is that we are becoming more and more diverse. And our students hold different identities. They have people in their families who hold different identities. They need opportunities to learn about one another. They need opportunities to practice. How do we speak respectfully to one another? How do we solve problems and share our differences with one another? Sorry. So that is where the DEI CIT came out with, and sort of a little bit of the history about how we got to where we are here in Lexington. At this point, I want to pause on this and switch gears more deeply into the why this is so important. And then we'll get back to the timeline and where we are and where we're going. So I'm going to pass it over to Ms. O'Hare Gibson.
All right, next slide, please. And the slide is just the question, are students developmentally ready to talk about these topics? And this is one of the big questions that we get, and quite honestly, that those of us who created the curriculum, teach the curriculum, are looking to move forward with curricula, do take this very seriously and consider this. And what we found, this question of when is the right time to teach students about identity, what we found from the research and from our own personal experience is that our children are ready for these topics and to have these discussions. And quite honestly, they're often ready for them before some of the adults are. Some of us have some things that have happened, some life experience that may impact the way we think about these things that young children with less life experience don't have as much that they're bringing to the conversation. Elementary school teachers teach reading, writing, math, science, social studies, a lot of content. Their real expertise is on their students, on the developmental level of the students that they're teaching. And their superpower is taking really complex ideas and putting them into ways that are developmentally appropriate for their students to understand. Now, I wasn't that long ago as a teacher. I see teachers teach every day, and I know what happens is teachers teach a lesson and then they check for understanding. Usually what happens is after one lesson, some of the kids got it. Maybe they have some prior experience, maybe just the way it was taught to them really matched what they needed to hear and they get it immediately. And almost never everyone gets it. There's usually some kids who have a limited understanding, even a misunderstanding. The teacher checks their understanding, and when they notice what the misunderstandings are or what the limits of their understanding is, they go back and they go teach it again in a slightly different way. They might talk about it a little bit differently, and that's going to happen with these lessons as well. So we do believe, and we have seen, that our students are developmentally ready to talk about these topics. And again, as Caitlin said, many of our students hold these identities, have people in their lives that hold these identities that might impact, how that prior experience and background experience that they have. And so some might already have some of this language and some don't. And we're trying to give everyone shared understanding and shared language to come together.
Next slide, please. So not only do we have these beliefs and it's based on our practice in Lexington, it's also based on the research that exists out beyond Lexington. So we're going to just highlight two examples of developmental research, one for race and one for gender identity and sexual orientation. This school committee, those of you that have been here for a couple of years have seen me present this before. It's a graphic out of the Children's Community School in Philadelphia, and it's just a cool graphic that captures all the different studies. I find the one so fascinating that at birth, infants from 0 to 3 months old, they tracked the eye movements of those infants, and they more often they look at individuals who match the race of their primary caregivers than any other race. So if a child's caregivers are white, they're looking more often at white faces. If they're black, they're looking more often at black faces, and et cetera. And this trying to sort out the world through noticing difference is something that children do throughout development up until the time that they even come into our schools. And so some other highlights on here: from 2 to 4 years old, they are sorting out the world both in right and wrong ways, using race as one component of meaning. So they might be sorting out. Are we okay over there? There's a beeping.
Yeah.
Okay, we're good.
No, it's right here.
Okay.
We got it.
So one thing that they are doing is they're trying to sort out their world. They notice skin color, eye shape, hair texture, and they are asking questions. And what happens, research tells us, is by 5 years old, different racial groups have internalized different racial meanings that exist out in the greater world. And this goes hand in hand with the implicit bias research that exists out there.
Johnny, can I just tell you, I'm so excited because my granddaughter was less than 2, and when she look at me, she does this. Because I have small eyes, and I say, "Oh, she knows this," and then my daughter-in-law, of course, no, she can't help it.
Now you have the research to back it up. And so this research goes hand in hand with implicit bias research out there that does, we believe, wrongly teach young children that being white is better when it comes to racial groups than other racial groups. And so the research does suggest that by the time kids hit 5 years old, white students have internalized this message, and students of color have not yet internalized this message. That happens when they come to school. And so by the time they get through kindergarten, students of color have internalized the message that whiteness is right. And so for us, this research goes hand in hand with the experiences and the professional experiences of our staff. Why this is important, because this is happening whether we do this curriculum or not. And this is also parallel to what Julie Fenn is going to talk about in terms of SOGI development, sexual orientation, and gender identity.
Hi, everybody. We can go to the next slide.
Julie, can you speak up?
Nice and loud, Julie. Okay.
I mean, it's really unusual for people not to hear me, but maybe tonight I'm a little nervous. This graphic depicts the typical development of sexual orientation and gender identity and expression in children. I think it's important to note that this information is a result of over 50 years of research. And although this comes from the American Psychological Association, the research is consistent in recognizing that identities are formed early. And what else is important to note about this is that although by age 2 to 4, kids have an internal sense in their heads and their hearts about how they identify. And also whether how they identify in their heads and their hearts matches the gender they were assigned at birth, boy or girl. And by age 7, they're very much aware of gender consistency, constancy, and they may go underground already at that early age. And sometimes for kids, it's even younger than age 7, and experience that distress, that anxiety, that fear, that discomfort, that they don't want to displease the adults in their life. They don't want to make people around them feel uncomfortable. And honestly, they very much pay attention to what the adults are doing around them. And so it can be very scary and cause a lot of uncertainty for kids. But I think it's important to note that kids are very much aware at a very early age who they are internally, and whether that matches or not the gender assigned at birth.
Let's jump in and
Yeah,
just
thank you.
clarify. So what Julie's talking about with in terms of the going underground and feeling nervous, that typically only happens for students who are gender expansive or gender diverse. You know, the students whose identities match those that they were given at birth typically don't feel that stress. Right. And so
Right.
it's important to note that this is true for all children, not just for those who identify as trans or gender expansive in their identities. This is true for cisgender children and typically developing children.
And I think just to add to that too, that for kids whose identity matches the gender assigned at birth, they're not questioned about that. Where for kids whose identity and sense of self doesn't match the gender assigned at birth, they are questioned about that. And there's wonders about that and concerns about that. And so I think, you know, if we flip that around, it helps us to have a better understanding about why it's so important that we're having these conversations, that it is age appropriate for them. So the next slide, why this worked for Lexington students. And so I'm a part of the team that oversees the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. And you know, so I'm going to talk a little bit about this data. It is available on the school and I believe town website. But I think it's really important to understand that children can't learn if they don't feel psychologically or emotionally safe. And I would say in these times, physically safe. And I think that's really important to just name that. Our own local data from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey that is given every other year. It comes out of the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, and also through Department of Public Health. That data that we get, it's an anonymous survey, shows us that some students may be at higher risk, and it makes a compelling case for us in terms of our approach to teaching the whole child and our curriculum in this. So I want to just go through some of the data that's up there. It's a real brief summary. There's a lot more and you can dig into it all you want on the website. But 1 in 4 students at LHS identify as LGBTQ+. Or LGBTQ+ students at LHS are 4.5 times as likely to be bullied at school. And 3 out of 4 transgender students at LHS feel hopeless every day. So recognizing the need for people to understand, be respectful of each other, hits home really hard here in terms of our responsibility to save lives in our community. And our youth, their lives matter in terms of this. I think it's also important to note that also cisgender females more often report being electronically bullied compared to cisgender males, as do Middle Eastern, North African, or Arab American students compared to other racial ethnic groups. Another point that comes out across the data that we get from our students, students on IEPs or 504s are also more likely to be bullied both at school and online compared to their peers without 504s or IEPs. And so why does that matter? I think it matters because this is important for all students, not just for our marginalized communities of students. It's making sure that our students can interact respectfully and with curiosity and compassion for each other. And I can't remember Katie or Caitlin who said it, but having sat on the carpet with kids to talk about health education curriculum, what I love is that they truly understand it. And I would say without judgment, and they're comfortable with just having that information. And again, I think it's just really important for us to understand as adults, it might be harder for us. But what I consistently observe, and I'm old, I've been around for a long time, is their comfort and their acceptance of their differences. And whether they or their family share those same beliefs or values, there's an appreciation and understanding of that. The preliminary data, the 2023 YRBS data will be coming out in the next month or so, and that we're in the process of reviewing that data and putting the reports together to share with the community, also our superintendent and our school committee, and that we will also present that information at our School Health Advisory Council, and everyone will receive that email through the global email blasts that go out. But what we are able to garner so far from that data is that it shows that 26.8% of Lexington High School students identify as non-cisgender and or non-heterosexual. 49.6% of LGBTQ plus students felt sad or hopeless versus 20.8% of non-LGBTQ students. So let me just say that again, 49.6% versus 20.8%. 15.6% of LGBTQ plus students reported being bullied on school property versus 7.3% of non-LGBTQ students. 27.5% of LGBTQ students seriously considered suicide versus 9.8%. So it's 27.5% of non-LGBTQ students. And I'm going to defer to my notes because I have a lot going on up here and I want to be sure to share these points. There are many local patterns and trends that we see in our own data for our LGBTQ plus youth, and they're consistent with broader research and other state and national data sets. And that includes the recent data and research that came out from the Center for Disease Control. And again, this is longitudinal data. That is a large group that they are surveying. And their data shows that adolescents are experiencing a widespread emotional distress right now. We are coming out of a pandemic. And I think the important piece here is that the pandemic affected all students, but it did not affect all students equally. While poor mental health is common among some youth, it is reported far more than often by LGBTQ youth. And that research also finds that bullying for any child, is linked to higher risk for other negative outcomes, including impacts on mental health and substance use, and will likely interfere with their learning experience and their outcomes. And that's why we're here, to really talk about the learning experiences and the education of all of our students here. Here's the good news. Fortunately, The research also finds that risk is significantly reduced by supportive structures and adults, and that includes schools. And there's research through the National Institute of Health, through the CDC, through many organizations that have been studying this for years, that schools play an important role in providing that acceptance and support. So taken together, I think it's really important that this information suggests risk of harm due to the isolation, the fear that comes with unaccepting environments or those perceived by students to be unwelcoming, and that harm can be reduced by explicit inclusion and proactive acceptance. And I think if you haven't gotten it for me at this point, I'll just end on this note. And this really all supports the need for our inclusive curriculum and ongoing efforts to ensure a safe and productive learning environment for all.
Thank you. Hard to follow Julie. I was feeling that way about this. So we have been talking about why this work is so important. There is the data, that YRBS data is available for folks, as Ms. Fenn said, to dig into further. But we do feel that this is critical for health and safety for students in our schools. Next slide, please. We're going to shift into the DEI curriculum work in Lexington. And as I said before, this is not an exhaustive overview. There's too much that has happened over the last many years, but I want to talk about some of the major pieces that we're trying to thread together now. Next slide, please. So in Lexington, we have the Windows and Mirrors curriculum, and that I learned as I was preparing for this. I was trying to figure out how far back does it go? How far back does it go? And I think I found the first mention of it being implemented in 2007. So this is a curriculum that includes lessons on what it means to be gender expansive, the impacts of teasing, rumors, bullying, discrimination, and more. And that's a curriculum that was implemented K-5 many years ago. Over the years, it's now not being used in all schools. It's been revised, revisited, and so pieces are here and there throughout the elementary schools. Our social studies and health curriculums, we teach those in elementary school, and as the state standards get revised, as we know more and do better in the way of our DEI teaching, those curriculums have adapted to to include diversity, equity, inclusion standards in the social studies and health curriculums. Understanding Our Differences is a disability awareness curriculum, and this was developed right next door in Newton, actually, by and it's a collaborative parent and family organization that works with the schools to implement the Understanding Our Differences curriculum. I taught those lessons when I was a teacher at Estabrook, so this was a long time ago. And in 2019, we ended up being able to bring that to scale across all the elementary schools. And then there's Serious Talks, which is, I'll dig into a little bit more. It was developed at Bowman, as Dr. Hackett mentioned, and implemented in 2016. Next slide, please. And something I forgot to mention on that last slide again is that there are additional lessons and units and department projects and different things happening that were not on that list that are the products of our teacher and principal and department head led work over the last many, many years. So what is Serious Talks? This is the one that's getting all the attention out, so we want to make sure to flesh that out a little bit for folks. It's 6 themes in the Serious Talks curriculum, and they're listed in that little hexagonal design over there, and they spiral over 6 years. So when students start in kindergarten, there are lessons starting with why this work, identity and perspective, privilege and bias, oppression and power, not solved yet, looking ahead, and then every year the lessons follow those same themes and engage students in deeper nuance, deeper complexity as they get older. The curriculum has 18 to 25 lessons per year, per grade level. And it's important to note that the curriculum is sort of in interaction with the teacher and the students in front of them. So the teacher might decide in a year to use all of the written lessons for the curriculum. A teacher might decide based on the students in front of them and the work that they're doing in other areas of the curriculum to pick and choose which lessons are most important for their students to receive. And of course, time is always the biggest crunch in elementary school. We're trying to squeeze in a whole lot into a short amount of time. So sometimes choices are made as to what are the most important things to be teaching in a given year. One of the major themes of this curriculum, and we also use it across the elementary curriculum, is the idea of some, not all. So this is language that we teach students when we're learning about different people and different cultures and different identities, that we can't generalize something to all people. Some girls like pink. Some boys like trucks, not all. And we use this language over and over again, that there's not just one way to be any particular identity. There's not one way to be a girl. There's not one way to be a person from China. There's not one way to be any of the different identities that we bring to this community. So we come back to that phrase, some, not all, and we use it throughout the elementary experience and I'm sure through the secondary as well. So since this curriculum was implemented at Bowman, word has spread. Teachers talk to their colleagues in different schools about the work that they're doing. Parents talk to one another. Students, as they get into middle school and high school, talk about their experiences. We saw through the strategic planning process that people were wanting this curriculum to scale up. They wanted their students to have that experience, even if they weren't at Bowman. So over the last several years, Estabrook School has officially taken on some of the Serious Talks lessons. Harrington School has been piloting them, and teachers, individual teachers across the district may also be using some of these lessons as well. One thing that is important to note too at this juncture is that we regularly review our curriculum, and then the pandemic happened. And so this summer, as we are seeing this curriculum sort of get a lot more attention, we are looking back at the written documents and realizing these have not been updated in a while. And as I talk to different teachers in different schools, they look at the documents and they say, oh, you know, I'm actually doing that a lot differently now. As we learn more, as we know more, as teachers work with the students in front of them, the curriculum does change and does get revised. So a project I've been working on, and there have been a number of wonderful teachers helping, are updating the Serious Talks curriculum documents and also parent communications. So it's been the summer, people have been on vacation, but we are working on those. For folks who have students in classrooms where Serious Talks is being used, you can expect to see some of these updated parent communications coming out over the course of the year to give more information around what is the vocabulary we're using, how do we define it for students, what are the books that are being read, and how can you support this work at home. So those are some of the pieces that we're working on with Serious Talks curriculum right now. Next slide, please. So I apologize, this text is small and folks can take a look at it in depth, but I wanted to share a couple of the examples of topics, themes, types of concepts that are explored in each of those themes as a student goes through the Serious Talks curriculum. These are not organized by grade level. At any grade level, your child might have a lesson that hits on one of these topics. I just want to give sort of the big overview of what you might expect in a Serious Talks lesson. So the why this work at every grade level fits right in with the beginning of the year, build your classroom norms, set up your community conversation. So this is about how do we talk to one another when we don't agree? What are the norms for how we treat everybody with respect? How do we express when we feel upset at something that somebody else has said? So classrooms at different levels from kindergarten through 5th grade have these conversations to start off the year. And it's Serious Talks, and it's also just how do we work together in this classroom as a community of learners. Every year, students dive into the identity and perspective lessons. So this chunk of the curriculum looks at different aspects of identity, including but not limited to who's in a community, different colors of skin, gender norms, families, culture, religion. A big theme of this is being proud of all the parts that make up you. and being respectful of all the parts that make up everybody else. So that's really the undertone or underpinning of that. Then at every grade level, they move into privilege and bias. And so there's a series of lessons that help students understand advantage and disadvantage, fair and unfair, and gives lots of historical examples, voting rights, representation in government, examples of where advantage and disadvantage have played out over history. The oppression and power strand gets into linking the idea of difference and then advantage and disadvantage and rules and fairness. So we talk about the story of Rosa Parks, slavery, the civil rights movement. And then in some of the older grades, we get into what are the examples of using power for positive change? So when you look at the community, how do the people in power use that power to make our buildings all very energy efficient? And how does that help our community? So using power for positive change. Not solved yet is the part of the curriculum where teachers really make the connection or help students make the connection that this isn't all about history. We use a lot of historical examples to illustrate these big concepts, but it's not all in the past. There are still advantage and disadvantages to be found in our communities. There's still fairness and unfairness. And so what do those examples look like in current events in modern day? And then that goes right into looking ahead. What can I do? Even as a young child, how do I speak up for what's right? How do I identify difference and respectful communications in my own life? What are the ways that my classroom can be a symbol of kindness in our school? So making change even in our classrooms, in our community, in the locus of control that we have. So I'm wondering if I put a couple of lesson examples in the PowerPoint, if we would like to click into some of those and see a little bit more of what a lesson looks like of interest to our school committee at this point.
I mean, you can go into examples.
I'll do a couple and then I'll check back in and see if you want me to keep going or wrap up.
I know we've all looked at them, but I think it might be helpful for people listening.
Thank you. Julie's a step ahead of me. So I pulled out a couple of examples, and you have to, there are lots of educators in the room, and there are lots of people who maybe haven't been in an elementary classroom since they were a child themselves. But most of the lessons in the serious talks, I'll say most, and somebody else can correct me if I'm wrong, introduce a big idea. They activate some prior knowledge. And remember when we talked about this thing, today we're going to learn about this new thing, connecting the new information to the prior knowledge, giving students some information. Usually there's a read aloud. So then, the books are chosen for how they represent the concepts in text. And then there's a class discussion, an activity, students reflect or students write to solidify the learning. So that's the general sense of a lesson. Gender identity is a lesson that comes up in the identity and perspective segment of the curriculum. And there's a variation on this lesson in kindergarten, first grade, maybe third grade as well. But it starts with define gender. Your feeling about if you are a girl, a boy, or both, or neither. Everyone has a gender identity. In our world or our society, people expect that men or boys do certain things and women or girls do other things. Let's read, and then at kindergarten, they read A Fire Engine for Ruthie. In first grade, they read What Riley Wore, and explore these expectations and develop our own opinions. So then they read a book that has a character who was assigned a gender at birth, but Ruthie likes fire trucks, not all the things that her grandmother thought that she might want to play with, the dolls and the tea sets. Riley, they never say what Riley's gender assigned at birth is in the story. Riley today is going to dress up as a firefighter. Tomorrow, Riley's going to dress up as a bumblebee. And Riley just feels comfortable in whatever Riley wants to wear. So we read the book, and then with students, we do a T chart. So you put the two columns on the chart and you fill out both columns. What do girls like? What do boys like? So then the students start saying, well, girls like, and they list all those examples of stereotypical things that girls like. Boys like blue and soccer and trucks, and girls like pink. And then the students do that wonderful thing that kindergartners and first graders do. They say, well, wait a second. I'm a girl and I like blue. I'm a boy and I like pink. and they have the conversation, the teacher facilitates, that's the way I should phrase it, the teacher facilitates a really wonderful conversation around, isn't it silly that sometimes we think that only girls can do these certain things and only boys can do these certain things? Isn't it true that these are all just kid things, people clothes that people can wear, colors that people can like? So I'm getting way too far into it, but that is a lesson that happens in kindergarten and first grade, and the students come away saying these really wonderful things around and having this understanding that there are stereotypes in the world, that sometimes people think that you should or should not like something because of a part of your identity, but it's not really true. And that some, not all thinking comes in here, that some girls like this, some boys like that, but not all. And there are many ways to be a girl or a boy or a person in our world. So that is an example of the gender identity lesson that comes up in a couple of grades. I'll do one more and then I'll see. Next slide, please. So in almost every grade, there's a families lesson in the identity and perspective strand. And we define family as a group that cares for one another. And it could be people that live in the same house. It could be people that are related to each other. It could include pets and close friends. And so there's so many books that could be read. These are two that we read. Gosh, I want to say first grade and second grade. These are the recommended texts. So the teacher reads the book and then the students have a conversation. Is this every type of family? Can you imagine a different type? What's important in all families? And what do different types of families have in common? So just giving students language and images and text to support that every kind of family that makes up our community is okay and a family and welcome here. And in this identity and perspective strand, after a couple of lessons along these lines, students usually end up doing sort of a visual representation. They might do an identity self-portrait where they draw themselves and draw the identities about them that are visible to other people and the ones that are invisible that only they know and they could choose to tell people about. We have identity story cloths, identity jigsaw puzzles, different ways for students to sort of track and record over time how they're understanding their own identity and bringing their full self to the classroom and being proud of their full self. So that's going a little bit deeper into the identity and perspective strand. I have some examples. Should I keep going or?
I think we can keep.
Let's move along.
Just a reminder to those listening in the other room and everyone out here, all of this is linked to the agenda, so you can see all of this, and if you want to look at more specifics, they're all linked there.
So then I will ask Julie, if you could go back to the other slideshow, thank you, and to the next slide. I want to close out this section by sharing some statements from teachers. So we have incredible educators who have developed these lessons, are teaching these lessons. Look at the students in front of them, as Ms. Hunter Gibson said, are the experts on the students in front of them. And several folks have reached out to share with me, with Dr. Hackett, with the school committee, what the impact or what they have seen the impact to be in their classrooms. So I've linked to several statements that folks gave me permission to share with the school committee and share with the community. But I wanted to put two up here for folks to think about. And I'll just read the one on the left and let folks read the one on the right in their spare time. Like our best curriculum in Lexington, the series talks have always been about teaching critical thinking skills. The goal is not to tell students what to think, but how to think and how to have meaningful conversations with each other, even about difficult topics. I should also at this point thank all the teachers who reached out and shared their lessons, shared their ideas, shared how they use series talks and why they feel it's so critical for their students. Next slide, we're going to move away from serious talks now and back into the bigger context of where we are and where we're going. So this district-wide DEI curriculum, if you remember the timeline, goes way back to 2018 with the call to action, strategic plan, school committee and superintendent goals. And here we are today working on this district-wide DEI curriculum. We are looking at everything that we can get our hands on that already exists in the district. There is the series talks curriculum, there's windows and mirrors, understanding your differences, health, social studies, counseling lessons. I'm sure I'm not naming several other pieces of this that we are looking at. And we are trying to sort of weave the thread through it all, pull out what are the best of each of those pieces and integrate it into a district-wide consistent experience for our students. Next slide, please. I linked a project timeline in there for folks who want to get really in the weeds. We started developing the lessons last year. We did pause for a little while. There were a lot of initiatives going on in the district, and folks were really feeling like we need to slow down a little bit. So we did put a pause on it last year. This year, the elementary team was at it again. They've been working on looking at what's there, pulling it together, creating some lessons. This fall, all the elementary teachers will have professional learning on the social justice standards and the first few lessons in the district-wide DEI curriculum. The idea is that this fall we'll be implementing 2 to 4 lessons at each grade level, K to 5, that address the identity standards in the Teaching for Justice, social justice standards. So those lessons are very similar to some of the identity and perspective lessons from Serious Talks, where it's about what are all the parts of my identity, how do they make me me, how am I proud of all the parts of me, and how do I understand to respect all the parts of other people. So we are looking forward to getting into the classrooms with the educators and having that professional learning in, I want to say October, November are our dates for that. And we'll be organizing some community information sessions and communications to keep folks apprised of those lessons and that content. And we are working to scale up to a full PK through 5 implementation of 12 to 16 lessons addressing those social justice standards. Hopefully by the 25-26 school year. I really hope there's no more pandemics in our future and we can actually keep the progress going on this. So the idea is that once the district-wide curriculum scales up, this is what we are saying every student really needs to have. And so all the different standalone pieces that some folks have been using or that have blossomed in different parts of the district, hopefully we've caught all the best pieces of those and integrated that into the district-wide curriculum. So Serious Talks, Windows and Mirrors wouldn't be standalone curriculum anymore. Those concepts would be integrated into the district-wide DEI curriculum. And then here is an exciting part for me. This would mean that the DEI curriculum enters the curriculum review cycle, which is the cycle that we use to continually evaluate and revise all of our curriculum. ELA, science, math, social studies, all of it goes through curriculum review. And because DEI hadn't been centrally developed and managed, it hadn't had this opportunity before. So now this means that there will be regular audits of the curriculum. How are we doing? Are we reaching our goals for students with it? What gaps are there in the curriculum? And certainly opportunities for student and community input in each of the cycles as we move forward to make sure that we are continually revising and improving on this work. Thank you. I will stop there and just say thank you to everybody for your time. The educators who, even though we tell you not to read email over the summer, I'm glad you did. Because it helped me so much putting this together and making sure that I had the resources that I would need and that the team would need to be able to share this with everybody. So with that, we would love any questions that you have.
So being as it's 8:30, and this is something I know we all want to give time and thought to, but we haven't had a recess yet. I'm going to call a brief recess. It is 8:28. So okay, everyone, welcome back. I know that was slightly longer than 10 minutes. Hold on just a second while everything quiets down. Stop being excited at the school committee. I want to go home. Okay.
No, we might as well talk about people.
Oh, okay,
in this
Mabel.
Number one,
Mabel.
speak with accent. Number two, old ladies.
Mabel.
I hit the jackpot.
Okay. Okay, so what we are going to do, school committee, is if you have brief comments or we'll just go around and brief comments or questions or pass, it's not also fine, for our presenters, we will do that. And then just because we have so many people still waiting to speak and we're a little bit behind, we are going to switch things up and do our community speak after that, because I know it's the first day of school, whether you have students at home or you are an educator or both. I know everybody is tired from today and ready to get home and ready for tomorrow. Okay, so thank you very much for your presentation. So if you wouldn't mind, we'll go around and give you our feedback. Mr. Freeman. Oh, sorry, I think, do you want to go? You ready?
Sure. Well,
Okay.
I can go. Yeah, wonderful presentation, and a couple of things that stuck out for me is I really appreciate the timeline that shows that LPS doesn't create curriculum by sticking a couple people in a back room for 20 minutes to bang something out on a computer. This happens over a very long period of time with input from a wide variety of individual people and groups within LPS, groups from without LPS. So it may seem like it because if sometimes you're not privy to all that, or you weren't, paying quite as much attention to it, but it really was happening over a very long period of time, again, with input from so many people. And I was thinking about something Ms. Fenn said, that you can't learn if you don't feel safe, because sometimes we hear from people like, well, why aren't we just spending more time talking about math or some other social studies or math or science. And again, if you don't feel safe, you're not going to be able to learn the math that we want everybody to learn. You need to meet people's basic needs in order to accomplish all of those other curricular goals that we have for ourselves. So thank you for that. And I was trying to model speaking really loud because we're hearing that people can't hear. So if you can't hear me, I don't know.
Go ahead, Mr. Freeman.
Great presentation. I was at times very emotionally attached. I felt very sad doing some of these slides and some of these statistics. And they weren't new to me. And they still, really touch my soul and we just need to make the world a better place. And I think, why not start here in Lexington? The presentation, it was kind of hard for me to follow at times because it seems like we were flipping from DEI curriculum to serious talks and, navigating that while trying to stay connected to all the information that was given was very difficult for me at times. And one thing that particularly stuck out to me is when we were talking about race. And particularly since we know serious talks is the hot topic for this meeting, has been for the last couple of months in this community. And then to bring race into this conversation seemed to be a little out of place. And I know that sounds awkward for me to say that as an African American. So African Americans, do not call me or text me and complain. It's just how I felt during the presentation, that I would have liked to remain focused on some of the questions that the community has about serious talks as far as, gender identity. And I felt like mixing race sort of fueled the fire that a lot of people challenge about DEI, saying it's only about race. When it's not only about race, it's about a lot of different things. And I felt like adding race into this dynamic of the conversation sort of took my mind away from where I came to really be laser focused on today. But I do think you all dumped enough information to us, and anybody who's listening, that if you're truly listening, your question should be answered. No, you didn't get questions, like how does this look in the classroom? There was no real picture painted, but the high level of what this curriculum is was, to me, very well explained, and I loved the presentation. I'm going to be taking some of these slides, and when people say, well, we don't even know what this is, please expect some of these slides that you saw today. Thank you.
I have to say, I'm also moved by so much of this, especially starting back a number of years ago, thinking this was an important thing to do, bringing Dr. Tackett in here and the way she pulled this district all together and made this a goal is just remarkable. And I think we're seeing that no matter what people's views are, I think the value of inclusivity is really the theme here. And I hope that comes across to people in the community that that's why we're doing this. We're doing it for everyone. We're doing it for everyone to learn about multiple kinds of identities, their own, the that of others, and how to be respectful and appreciative of all those differences and all the commonalities that are out there. And I think that's what's so important about this work. I guess one of the things as Larry spoke that struck me is that because there's been a more recent focus from people concerned about serious talks. I guess one of the things that might have been good to help bind together the DEI discussion and the serious talks discussion was the question about whether, can you even extract one identity from the myriad of things that we're trying to teach and the ways those things are intertwined. And I think perhaps that wasn't quite talked about or made explicit. So I don't know if you have anything you can add about that might be helpful to people to understand that. That's my only comment.
I mean, I think it's interwoven in all of the lessons for sure. I mean, you're talking about concepts of intersectionality, I think, and we don't necessarily use that terminology with the young children, but it is, some of those identity artistic pieces that the elementary kids create are often that is the focus. How do all these things come together to create who you are? That no one aspect defines who you are. That is certainly part of it.
Well, I just wanted to clarify because I think I agree that a lot of the concerns we've heard from the community are specifically around the lessons around gender. And I do worry that the community is confused about what the curriculum is. And so we wanted to make sure that we are clear that Serious Talks is not a gender curriculum, which some people have falsely twisted the narrative to say that that is what it is. Serious Talks is actually much bigger. It talks about identity, as Caitlin went through, right? And that gender is one aspect of identity, but there are many other aspects of identity that are talked about. And I think we specifically showed research around race because we have good research around that. There's not a lot of good research in some of the other aspects of identity. So that's just the part I want to clarify for everybody, that it's not that Serious Talks equals gender lessons. Serious Talks is actually much larger, and that's just the one aspect we've been getting a lot of questions about recently.
Thank you for clarifying that. That's exactly exactly what I was sensing, and I think it's good for people to hear exactly that.
Yes.
Thanks. So I'm going to go all over the map. I'm not going to connect the dots, so everybody can take what they want from my mostly their comments. And also congratulations for doing a really, really nice job on taking a very complex curriculum and very complex history of Lexington to come to the curriculum that we are now going to have in a couple of years and explaining that. I love what you said about the whole child, because truly Lexington Public Schools is doing everything for the whole child, the social emotional piece, and then in a little bit we're going to hear about the physical education piece. So there's curriculum, there's academics, there's all of that. I just want to reflect on something, given that I'm a much older person and I began school in Calcutta in early 1970s as a Sikh child going into a Catholic school. My parents were worried about me turning Catholic from being a Sikh child. And I'm thinking about the cycles of how we parents worry. We worry about our children, especially when they're in the elementary school ages, because we're worried first, will they survive? And then we are worried, then will they thrive? And then when I brought my children here into Lexington public school systems, my Sikh boy who doesn't cut his hair, and I was worried about, you know, all the marketing speak that seems to permeate at that time it was TV and stuff. That seems to permeate TV, that boys will wear blue and girls will wear pink. And I was like, here's a boy who doesn't cut his hair. He has long hair. I was worried about him being bullied. So I walk into Fisk classroom, this Jean Allard, I love her. And I explained to her how I'm worried about that. So my worry now had in some ways come full cycle, because now I'm taking a Sikh boy and worried about his Sikhness in a Lexington public school system. Fast forward to, 2 years after, when I take my girl into the same school, I've been hearing in the US, girls don't do math. And I'm like, that's not happening. So now my worry in 2 years, and with the gender change or the child change, had turned to something else. So we, especially as elementary school parents, worry so much. And this is, I guess, what I want to tell the parents of elementary school children. Take it from an older person with lots of white hair. These worries are valid because these are our feelings. But the Lexington public school system has a thoughtful and structured manner of dealing with these issues, with dealing with all of these different worries. And if they don't understand certain things about my culture, I come and I talk to the classroom teacher and I explain things. So I go up the chain and I explain it to the principal. And there are ways and mechanisms to do this in a collaborative fashion where everybody wins. And now both my children, I will say with pride, I think my son has the longest beard in this college. And I will go. But the point being is that that child didn't lose their Sikh identity, came across, finished as a whole child, as a whole being. And I think we need to have a little trust and faith in, firstly, the guidelines that have come down to us from the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. We are working within those guardrails, within those guidelines. All of the curriculum, none of this is going to be completely out of the wazoo. Okay, and believe me, have faith in how Lexington public schools function. If tomorrow we have somebody from Mars coming into LPS and wanting to bring their child or their young or whatever the term is, Lexington public schools will do everything to make sure that that young is well looked after. And if there's something that is left because we are not perfect, as a parent, come talk to us. You can talk to us, you can talk to the superintendent, or you can go up the chain within your classroom. And don't be so worried if things work out. That's all I want to say. Parents should, it's enough worry in the world. Let's worry about big things. This, we will figure it out.
Okay, that's it. All right. So it's just me now. So I will be really brief. When I had my first kid, it was like, okay, I'm gonna know all the things. I'm gonna be prepared for all of the questions that come out of their child's mouth. And for the most part, that has been true. I'm usually the parent with this child who I'm like, do you want to talk about this controversial subject that might be uncomfortable for you? Okay, but I think you should know, and does not want to talk to me that much about those things. So I thought I was really prepared for everything. And then I had another child who just threw me for a loop with all of the questions from the minute that child could talk. And luckily, this child has Ms. O'Hare Gibson for kindergarten many years ago. But I remember one of the things we talked about when I was talking to her. And she said, it's okay to say, I don't know the answer right now. Can I get back to you? And I found that like some of the really maybe questions that I might not want to answer. My kid forgets about it anyway. But a lot of the times, that just gives you space to say, hey, wait, it's okay if I don't know everything. I can talk to somebody about that. I can reach out to my child's teacher if it's something that's school related. I can reach out to a friend who has more experience. And I think for me, that's the piece of parenting advice that sticks in my head all the time. And it wasn't even parenting advice. It was just general advice for it's okay to not know and say, I don't know this right now, or I don't know if I'm ready to have this conversation, but I want to answer your question so we can come back and talk. And I think it's great how much time staff has spent answering community questions over the years. This is not a new thing. People have questions, especially if it's new to them, they're going to have questions. And I know you put so much time and effort. And I also know how much you care about the kids and how much this is based in really wanting to make sure everyone feels like they belong in Lexington Public Schools. And that might conflict sometimes with exactly what we know from home. And that's, I think a lot of us have different practices or different values that we have at home that might not always go along with what's at school. And that's okay. That's how the world is. And I know from, seeing all of you over the years that this really is about making sure we are protecting lives of students. And when you look at the YRBS data, I think that's really clear. So I want to make sure that we bring the focus back to that, because at the end of the day, that really is what this is about. And I can't imagine, my children have never had to go into a school building and say, I can't share the makeup of my family because I'm not comfortable, or I can't share who I am. I've never had to do that. And to me, to think that a child might come in kindergarten and think that they can't share who lives in their house, who their family is, or who they are as a person is really heartbreaking. And we talk so much about how great our test scores are and how great our academic achievement is, and that is true. But a lot of it has to do with the support that our kids get, because and I know you all know this, and this is preaching to the choir, but when they don't feel like they belong, their brain can't let them learn. And even if you don't share an identity that's marginalized, if that's happening to your friend, that's going to cause concern and you can't learn. And that's really not an environment that we want. We want all of our students to learn. We want them to be able to have discussions and ask questions and talk to each other. And I think the way you've done that has really set that up as a way that we can ask questions, and we're not shamed if we are a little confused. So I wanted to just put that out there, because I know that this has been a ton of work and you all work way past the hours that you should be. So I really appreciate that. And I'll wrap it up by saying, I remember in 2018, I was not on school committee yet and swore up and down I would never run for a school committee. And I remember sitting there when you did the DEI, our call to action, and I'm looking at that and I'm saying, oh my gosh, there are way too many problems. How are you ever going to sit down and focus and find something that you can fix? And the work of the strategic plan, which really, and I think it's important to emphasize, that was over a year long full community participation process where we could say, these are our shared community values. You might have ones that are a little bit different at home, and that's okay, but these are our shared values and we're going to move forward with that. To see that was only 5 years ago and we've had a pandemic in the middle of all that and things have been sidelined, to just see where we are now and see those things really coming together. And a few of us were on the DEI CIT and we did the gap analysis and we're looking at all of those things, and even looking at that and saying, okay, well, that's a lot of information. How are we going to take that and start doing lessons to see how fast that has moved? Is really impressive. And it's a credit to all of our educators too, who are like always learning things new, because we didn't have these things in school, right? So we're always learning from our kids. So I know we're late and I talked too long. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And if we have questions, we'll send them to you separately to give you additional questions. So thank you very much. And we are going to switch things around a little bit. I know I already mentioned that. We are going to do our second community speak, just because there are people who need to get some sleep tonight, who've been waiting for a while. I did want to mention I think we can just, yeah, that's fine. So the LPS wellness policy vote, we're actually not voting on that. We're tabling that. Because we had put that on there expecting that we would have had a policy sub and we weren't able to. So we are having one this week, and then we will bring that back for our first reading at our next meeting. But our staff has done a ton of work on that. So if you want to read over that before our next meeting so that we can be prepared for that first reading, that would be great. So we are going to go to what? Yeah, so the,
And we've already-
yes, exactly. So we're actually almost done with it,
Yeah.
except for the community speak. So the integrated building design and construction policy, we're actually supposed to vote on it, but I didn't catch that when we posted it, it didn't say the word vote. So since it didn't say the word vote, we cannot vote on it this evening. So we will be voting on that at our next meeting. Look it over. This is what we had the joint meeting about. We asked questions at that time, gave comments. We had opportunities for feedback, which we could send if we wanted to. It's pretty straightforward. If you have questions or comments like in the interim, send them to Dr. Hackett.
I want to tell about
You can start.
through you.
Yeah, go ahead.
We had a meeting, a follow-up meeting with the town manager and staff, 2+1. Oh, so sorry, I'm talking to you. We had a follow-up meeting, with town manager and staff about the policy and had expressed some concerns around the MSBA projects and how that, did or didn't integrate with the integrated design policy. We worked through all of those issues, so we're in a good spot and it should be ready to be voted at the next meeting.
Okay. So that will bring us to our next community speak, and this will be our last community speak, and I'm just looking at time. So just a reminder, we had a lot of people sign up. There were a few people who signed up like at the end of the day today. So if you signed up at a certain point where I cut it off and downloaded the list, you're not on the list, but you can certainly email the full committee your comments. We always read everything that comes in. And if you ever, I know most of us are happy to have a chat with somebody if they have more questions and want a phone call or whatever, we're happy to do that as well. So please send an email. And just a reminder, this isn't something that we are voting on. This is our curriculum. So this was just for everyone's information and to allow the community to give their input. The one thing I didn't say was it's really exciting to have the DEI curriculum then go under the curricular review process, which will be a regular opportunity for things to be updated and for community to continue giving feedback on it. So I did want to make sure that that's clear because people who said, oh, I didn't know this was happening or this is new or that is new. That's how we talk about those things and make them available to the public. Okay. Ms. K, are you ready?
Ready.
Ms. K, you're ready? Okay. All right, so I'm just making sure that I have, yeah, okay. So now we have the next 5 people. We have Singman Shah, then Zhang Li, and I apologize if I'm saying your name incorrectly, then Matthew Small, and Michael Sortor, if I'm saying that correctly, Valerie Overton, and then Jeremy Bateman. So that's the next, like, a bunch of people, but so that's the next order. So you can go to the podium.
So I'm supporting the people in the process behind serious talks. To me, the process is at least as important as the particular issue because people will disagree. And for a health community, we depend on the process to make these complex decisions. So what is the process? We are constantly reminded that we live in a republican democracy where we elect representatives, they hire professionals, we have volunteers, we do research, and we deliberate, right? We choose as citizens the rules that govern these processes. We have a responsibility to speak up if we don't like the rules, but we make the rules and we live by it. It doesn't mean that we just roll over and accept what our committees say. I mean, there's a role for threshold votes, for activist interventions, but these should be circuit breakers. They are a chance, if we see clear evidence that the process is broken, for us to step in. But I have read the position papers of the opposing side. And I don't see evidence that the process was broken. This process took over 10 years. Open, accountable people. It went through a strategy review process. Yes, 32A is an issue, but my reading of 32A, I'm not a lawyer, is that first of all,
30 seconds remaining.
The courts will take care of it, but you know, I think the case law will support the statement of the superintendent. I have no problem with people who want to change their talks, but there's a time and a place. So I'd say, sure, let's start the discussion for the next iteration. But let's not disrupt the work of the people that we assigned this task to.
Thank you. And next we have John Lee, but I apologize if I'm saying that incorrectly. Maybe he might not be here. She doesn't have it. Okay. So that brings us to Matthew Small. And I think Matthew was on Zoom. Oh. Welcome, Matthew. Whenever you're ready, you can unmute.
Hi, this is Matthew Small. I am a school counselor in Fisk Elementary School, and I am reading a statement that was written by a parent who would like to keep their identity private. I'm a Lexington resident and have 2 children who attended the public schools. I am overwhelmingly in support of the Serious Talks curriculum. When my gender diverse child was in elementary school, the Safe Talks curriculum did not exist. Although the administration, staff, and teachers tried to be supportive and helpful, they were not prepared or given the tools to create a safe, supportive climate or learning environment for my child. Had the Serious Talks curriculum been in place, the trajectory of our child's education would have been completely different, and we would not have had to find an alternate schooling option outside of LPS. Lexington has a diverse population, and I believe that our community values that diversity. Families like ours who have a transgender child need to be able to send their children to school without fear for their safety. We need a curriculum that teaches our children acceptance, compassion, kindness, and respect for all their classmates and those in our greater community. The curriculum teaches these important values. I am saddened to be writing this statement anonymously due to the lack of understanding and a great amount of different disinformation surrounding transgender children. It is unfortunately unsafe for my family to make a public statement. Lexington can do better. All children deserve to live and learn in a community that teaches acceptance. When one child thrives,
seconds remaining.
When one child thrives, our entire community thrives. Thank you for letting me share this story from a parent.
Thank you, Matthew. Michael?
Hi, I'm Michael Porter. I live in Hamblin Street in Lexington. My wife and I are parents of 2 recent graduates of the Lexington Public Schools, and we are strongly in support of the teaching of the Serious Talks curriculum. Our children attended public school because we feel strongly that education is not just about becoming proficient in science, math, and the arts. It's also about learning how to live as a member in our community and as a responsible citizen through exposing students to a range of children and families from different walks of life. Lexington is culturally rich and full of different viewpoints and ideas, but it also lacks some elements of the ethnic and socioeconomic diversity that we have in Eastern Massachusetts. Both of these aspects pose challenges in teaching our children to accept and to celebrate the many differences in the people they encounter every day here in Lexington and wherever else their lives take them. And we applaud that the Lexington schools have deepened this aspect of their curriculum to help all students develop an appreciation of diversity as part of becoming full members of society, and everyone in our community benefits from that. I speak also as a parent of 2 children that belong to groups that are represented in the Serious Talks curriculum. One aspect of Lexington that we have always valued is that our children have felt accepted and supported by their teachers, their friends, and other students. And this environment has allowed them to overcome their challenges, to thrive in their lives during and after high school. We will always be grateful to the Lexington community for empowering them to build their lives to be as rich and rewarding as they are today.
30 seconds remaining.
Go ahead. So Valerie and then Jeremy.
We were sitting here.
Hi, my name is Valerie Overton, she her 25 Emerson Gardens. And I'm here in support of the Serious Talks curriculum. Fundamentally, I believe that every single child deserves an honest, accurate, and inclusive education. And that prepares them for the future. And the Serious Talks curriculum is one important piece of that education. I think we've heard from many people today, including the research that was presented earlier, that children notice, they see the differences between themselves and others in the schools and elsewhere in their lives. And it's important for them to have a way to talk about those differences and understand those differences, make meaning of those differences constructively, respectfully, compassionately, so that they develop the skills to be able to engage with each other constructively and civilly. Civil discourse is an important part of life skills in school and later in work. So I think our school superintendent, our school committee, our educators for the fabulous job that they have done with this curriculum. And I also want to appreciate the presentation on the research basis for this curriculum.
30 seconds remaining.
The research is quite clear on all of, I won't reiterate it all, but everything they said. And, you know, I think that also being the chair of Lex Pride, I can, you know, there are so many case studies that I could share that really demonstrate the truth of what that research suggests. And so, so rather than go into a lot of different stories, because
2 minutes.
I'm just gonna say thank you.
Thank you very much.
My name is Jeremy Bateman, and I'm a school counselor at Lexington High School. Before I begin reading some student statements, I want to speak directly to the students who have reached out over the last several weeks, feeling uncertain or marginalized or targeted. To say, I hope what you have heard tonight is how much your community holds and supports you, both in the schools and in the wider community of Lexington. One of the things that I've heard over and over again in my role as a counselor is high school students begging for these conversations to have happened in elementary school for them. One student says, I first learned about the LGBTQ community when I was in 5th grade, and not only did it teach me about different identities and encourage me to be a more empathetic person, but it sparked my own journey. I will not tolerate any bigotry against my community. I will not tolerate hate veiled as concern. Another student writes, I'm trans and have never felt truly accepted by the LPS system. I don't want younger children to go down the same path of self-hatred and doubt that I did. We need to do better and protect trans youth. Another student writes, as a queer Asian American girl who just graduated from LHS, I know that having serious talks when I was in elementary school would have made my journey of self-acceptance throughout childhood and adolescence a little easier. I hope that serious talks can continue helping kids like me feel supported and loved for who they are.
30 seconds remaining.
I'm queer and biracial, but more importantly, I refuse to let Lexington become another not my child hush hush town, because we need to look at positive change and progress directly in the eye and say yes. Thank you.
The next 5, we have Maliha Karim, Suzanne Paradis, Amber Iqbal, Deb Zucker, and Zeshwan Zay. So once again, that's Maliha, Suzanne Paradis, Amber Iqbal, Deb Zucker, and Zeshwan Zay. We said that wrong. Reminder, if you are joining us on Zoom and I call your name, you can raise your hand. Okay. Go ahead, Maliha, whenever you're ready, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Maliha Karim. I live on Fortet Circle. And I wanted to talk about you know, some of the things I heard today. I was very concerned about the Sears Talk curriculum because of some of the agenda on there. And I just wanted to clarify some of our views on this. I know I have community members there as well that are with me and feel the same. We're not talking about whether these topics should be included in the curriculum. We're talking about when they should be included. I'm still not convinced that some of our youngest kids are ready. I have a first grader, and I think we should work together on options for parents who, like me, feel that their kids are not ready and have an opt-out option for us.
Okay, thank you, Malia. Next we have Suzanne or Sue. Not sure if Sue is still here.
I don't think Sue is here.
Okay. Okay. So Sue, if you are out there in Zoom and you pop up in a minute, just raise your hand and we'll get to you next. Okay. So next we have Amber Iqbal. Go ahead, Amber. No, just go ahead. Just loud.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Amber Iqbal, and I live in 49 Courtyard Place, Lexington. First of all, I wanted to thank you, Julie, and all the board members for hosting this gathering and this important meeting to hear both sides of views, right? And Lexington is a place where everyone feels welcome and included, and that should definitely reflect in our schools as well. The number of people I see in this room with opposing views to this curriculum show that not everyone is feeling the sense of inclusion, sadly. This issue can be potentially resolved if the school board is ready to listen to some suggestions. Number one, instead of making this as part of the curriculum, have this be taught as an elective or as an after-school program, right? Some kids are not comfortable or their parents are not comfortable to have them have this kind of conversations, so make it as an elective. Secondly, an entire agenda of what the teacher will discuss in this curriculum should be sent out to each parent at a weekly and monthly basis. Because when it comes to inclusion, sadly, a lot of parents that I have interviewed about this particular curriculum were basically sad about this not parents being included in what actually is going to be taught in school and keeping them in the dark about what is going to be included in this curriculum. So that is something important, being very open and explicit about what is going to be taught. And thirdly, children and parents should have the option to opt their kid out if they are not comfortable reading that agenda, they're not comfortable in having their kid be a part of that particular class or that
30 seconds remaining.
So these are a few suggestions that the community came up with, and we are hoping that the school committee today will come to a conclusion that is inclusive for all and not side with one view or the other. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. Next we have Deb. Deb, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Deb Zucker, and I live on Laconia Street in Lexington. We have two children who have gone through the Lexington school systems from Harrington to Clark and into LHS as well. I do have some student statements to read, but I first want to just make some comments on my own behalf. I think from folks who have concerns, I do hear the fear that parents can feel, especially parents of elementary aged students. I think as Sarah pointed out and others on the school committee, we are feel for everything. There is kind of a current underlying all of this, a fear that if we talk about gender identity, it will make our kids transgender. And that is just not true. I can no more make somebody transgender than you could make a transgender kid cisgender. And so I just want to acknowledge that and just say to the parents in the audience and to the parents everywhere, I do feel your fear when your child, but think about when your child may be suffering from relentless gender dysphoria and social stigma of being trans. It is absolutely crushing for your child, but also for you as a parent. Our inclination as parents is to try to save our children from such things. But the problem with this approach is we are who we are. No amount of denying our identity or trying to change it or delaying identities is going to make a difference. It only makes the child feel a sense of rejection, and it makes their dysphoria much worse. I would propose to everyone that instead of pretending that transgender people don't
30
exist,
seconds remaining.
let's lead with love and compassion, which is precisely what Serious Talks and the DEI curriculum does. Let's break down the stigma so that if a child is struggling with gender dysphoria, they aren't so ashamed that they hold it inside while it slowly eats away at them. Let's teach our kids to be kind and compassionate to others, even if we don't always fully understand. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Kay, now we have Zeshwan Deng, who is joining us, I think, on Zoom.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Please state your full name and address for the record.
Oh, sure. It's Zhen, and we're at 3 Baker. I guess I have two suggestions. One suggestion is, which would be really useful because we do live in a very diverse town with different opinion, is if I don't know when would be a good time, maybe once a serious talk become part of the curriculum, can we make the curriculum material available so all the parents can read, can kind of access, and if they want, they can prepare their child for that. Second suggestion is, I would suggest that for future meetings like this, if we have a lot of community speak, can we have all the community speak like merged into the first one? Because I mean, that would be really useful because you can see, we have 70, but I do remember when I was in a different town, right? I mean, Brookline, they have 100 speakers and they all fit at the beginning. So we speak from 6 to 9. That would be really helpful for parents who have kind of different view to express their opinion as well as help to bring the community together. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, our next 5, we have Steve Altman, John Carney, Suzanne Sharonson, and Jim Mars. So if you are here, Steve Altman, or you are on Zoom, raise your hand. So Steve Altman, John Carney, Suzanne Sharonson, and Jim Mars. Was that in order? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I think that's a little late. And then Lana Panasia. So are you Steve? Okay, go ahead. Oh wait, I missed. No, I did 5. I had Jim. Anyway. It's Jim and them. Yeah.
Steve Altman, 4 Heritage Drive. I think some things are being talked around in this conversation. And one of them is that the biological imperative is probably the strongest motivator in life. And that biological imperative, dogs, cats, trees, grass, birds, bees, whatever. So if somebody identifies or is gay, they are gay. It's not something that can be taught into you or taught out of you. And there's some sense that if children are not introduced to this material, or if it's an elective, that somehow they will not become gay because they were never introduced to this material. I think this is fundamentally incorrect and should not really enter into this type of a discussion. The other thing I'd like to say is that if you
look at CDC numbers where they have a percentage of children that identify as gay or not gay. And then you look at statistics concerning self-harm and things like suicide. To me, it's pretty clear that these are children that are more unhappy than other children. And I think that they're more unhappy because
30 seconds remaining.
I think because there's a lot of dissonance in their life. And that dissonance is lack of approval by their parents, or an active counter by their parents, or in their peer groups, other children are giving them a bad time. I think this is not a question that children should be able to opt out, or their parents should have them opt out of this type of a program. It's important for all kids to learn this and to learn to be tolerant of other kids, not give them a bad time. And the kids that
2 minutes.
are in a situation where they are gay, to be in a situation they become more educated about it and they have a better chance than bad time by parents, bad time by schools.
John Cody.
I'm John Carney. I live at 3 McKeever Drive. In Superintendent Hackett's superintendent report dated today, she credits the DI community input team for providing curriculum recommendations. There are a lot of people here tonight that oppose the Serious Talks curriculum for first graders. I'd like to know if anyone on the community input team had reservations or opposed this curriculum for first graders. The process for selection of the community input team was discriminatory. The application included 2 questions. The first question asked, which groups do you identify with? The second question asked about your views. From the over 100 applicants, approximately 30 were selected by Johnny Cole to participate. I was one of the applicants that was not selected. By design, the community input team is an echo chamber. It amplifies one ideology while excluding those with differing beliefs. The team that is supposed to be focused on inclusion was formed by a process of exclusion. I ask that you release the community input team applications. Let the public see for ourselves those voices that are magnified and those voices that are silenced. When Superintendent Hackett credits the community input team with curriculum recommendations, by no means does this represent an endorsement from the overall community. When addressing the issue of opting out of the Serious Talks curriculum,
30 seconds remaining.
the superintendent says it is not an option. Instead, she says that you may opt out of the school system altogether. This doesn't sound like we all belong. It sounds a lot more like my way or the highway.
Okay, next we have Suzanne Sharonson, and I'm not sure if Suzanne is joining us on Zoom. Suzanne might have luck. Huh? Is she? Okay, so we'll go, I think Jim is next. Go ahead, Mr. Mars.
My name is Jim Mars. I live at 11 Bicentennial Drive in Lexington, Massachusetts. I'm here tonight on my own behalf. I'm also representing former Lexington graduates. I have 3 children, adult children that are both parents and educators to some extent. And they live in other states now. So they're giving you a perspective, I hope, of graduates. I'm going to cut this short, and I want to read to you what I got back from my daughter after I asked all my children the following question. You went through the Lexington school system, and some of you even have children, grandchildren of your own. Please review the attached file and the 2 links I've included. Then think back to your elementary school years and help me understand how you would or could have benefited from the change in the curriculum being implemented starting this year in Lexington. Unfortunately, like most children of their age and having graduated, don't always listen to their father. So what I got back, I'm going to read to you. Only one responded with printable, or the expression, material, which I will read back to you now. Everything Lexington is proposing is one of the many reasons we were considering pulling Jay out of public school.
30 seconds remaining.
And there's more, and I'll send that to the committee. My bottom line message and perceptions are as follows. Our Serious Talks curriculum is being scaled up before educating parents. As to the features and benefits, read the strategic plan and don't criticize or question motives until you do. Go to the Fairfax County, Virginia school website. Use what you can use, lose what you can't. Strongly reconsider the no opt-out provision in the strategic plan. Chances are good that most parents will not pull the kids or take advantage of the option, and you'll turn a criticism into a feature that will eliminate or soothe naysayers. And I'll cut it off.
That's fine. Thank you. And you said you'll email us the rest of your comments?
Yes, I will.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks again for listening, and I am a petition.
Okay, the next 5 speakers, we have Lana, who I believe is on Zoom, Sam Summers, Jen Roney, Jayanti Sinha, and Sarah Higginbotham. I think we have Lana on Zoom, okay.
Hi, my name is Lana Panasiuk, and I live in on 28 Saddle Club Road. So I have 5 kids, 2 of them already adults who went through the Lexington public schools, and the youngest is still in the elementary school. I wanted to start talking originally about the Serious Talks, but let me change a little bit because that was 4 hours ago. So now I feel strongly, and my family also, as excluded. I know we talk about inclusion, but the way how school committee, and I talked about the loss of communication and trust, the way how 200 people or maybe 300 people were packed in the gym where you can't breathe, standing room only, and the school committee is sitting in the separate room. It's just, I felt so excluded, and I couldn't express my opinion about the curriculum, about the Serious Talks. And in my view, this is not intent of the school committee, but that's how it came out. And I don't want it to be formed as a representation of democracy in the Lexington community, because I don't believe that this is true, but that's how it comes out. So I think we should work together as a community and the Lexington public schools to improve communication and make the parents be inclusive, parents of the elementary students be inclusive in the decision making. And I don't have time to talk about the Serious Talk anymore, because I think the communication is the most important part. Being at the Lexington for 25 years and having 5 kids through this community, I don't want to lose the communication. It's so important. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Sam Summers. Welcome, Sam.
Hi, my name is Sam Summers. I live at 3 Watson Road in Lexington. I come to you tonight in 3 capacities. One is as a parent. My 2 children have gone through the LHS system, the LPS system, from Bowman to Clark to LHS, class of 21, 23. I also come to you as a college professor. I teach up the road at Tufts University, 20 minutes away. And a week from tonight, I'm going to have 500 first-year students in my Psych 1 class. I know a little bit about what it takes to succeed in higher education when it comes to sort of the academics, but also the social and emotional aspects, which often get underrated. And I also come to you as a scientist whose scholarship focuses on diversity and the psychology of racism and discrimination more generally, but also how diversity and inclusion affects how we think, feel, and act. And all three of those perspectives converge to support in just enthusiastic fashion what you heard today in terms of the EDI plan for the school district, what you heard about the Serious Talks program. I can't express enough my appreciation to Dr. Hackett and the board for their prioritizing these issues in our school system. We moved to this town for the schools, as many people did, and we weren't disappointed. And a lot of what we've heard tonight from people affirming the importance of these programs has only served to sort of confirm that further. You can't, as you heard, you can't learn if you don't feel safe, right? You can't do the things that you have to do in education, which involves taking risks and tolerating uncertainty and putting yourself out there. And you can't do those things if you don't feel safe. And frankly,
30 seconds remaining.
we're doing all of our students a disservice if we don't send them out into a multicultural and diverse world with an ability to navigate these kinds of issues. To the folks who have expressed concerns, I guess what I would say is you wanted more information and a lot was presented. You wanted peer review data. Those were great data. I could use those in lecture. Those slides that you saw today, you wanted to hear about that. I think a lot of that was presented. If the concern really is about our children's welfare, there is one slide that you should take with you tonight. There's one thing that should keep you up at night, that should have you circulating petitions, have us all lining up and sitting here.
2 minutes.
It's Julie Fenn's data about safety and our children, and that's what should be keeping us up at night if we're really all concerned about safety.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Jayanti. Not on Zoom either. Okay. So Jayanti, if you are out there on Zoom, raise your hand and we'll come back to you. Sarah, I can bother. Wait, did I skip? No, hold on. Sorry, I skipped Jen. Sorry, it's late. I'm like trying to make sure I don't skip anybody. Jen, and then if Jayanti's here, and then Sarah. Sorry.
Hi, Jennifer Roney, 16 Lillian Road. I'm the parent of a high school student and 3 older kids who all went through LPS. I just want to say my very strong support for Serious Talks and for all the other ongoing efforts by our educators to create safe, respectful, and productive learning environments for all of our kids. Public schools have a very lofty goal, bringing together so many children from so many different identities, backgrounds, experiences, learning styles, and somehow helping each of them meet their potential. That can only work when classrooms are spaces where every student feels safe, seen, respected, and ready to learn. I learned from my own brief and rather misguided stint at the front of a high school math classroom and from years of volunteering at Harrington that spaces like that don't just magically appear when the bell rings. They require very good teachers, and they require arming all of our students with the vocabulary and the tools that they need in order to understand each other, to mediate conflicts, and to advocate for themselves and for each other. I appreciate the district's commitment to Serious Talks as one very important part of that effort. Creating a safe, inclusive, respectful, and constructive school environment for everyone isn't easy. Our YRBS data imply that, like many other school districts, we have lots of work still to do on that front. But our children depend on our getting it right, and not just our K-5 students, but also our older students as well. Because after years of accumulated misunderstandings, bullying, and exclusion, that can all too easily snowball into extremely serious
30 seconds remaining
for our town's teens. Thanks very much to all of you and to all of our LPS educators for your commitment to this important work and for making sure that we all belong is a reality and not just a slogan in Lexington. Thank you.
Now we have, sorry. Okay.
Hi, I'm Sarah Higginbotham. I live at 21 Byron Avenue. My pronouns are she, her. I have a son who is in 8th grade at Clark, and I am very grateful to LPS for the holistic model of education that you support. I'm going to read a few statements, if I can, from students. One student writes, "This is a matter related directly to the welfare and education of the student body of the Lexington Public School System, which is an organization that I, as a student, am an active member of. It is vital for each member of our community to actively play a role in helping provide a more wholesome and inclusive education to the students in order to best prepare our students to go out into the world with the tools and knowledge necessary and to make sure no student fails to find their success due to the lack of knowledge about their identity and the inability to properly express themselves." Another student writes, "This curriculum teaches respect, awareness, and acceptance. The issues discussed in Serious Talks pertain to everyone in our community, whether it be through direct or indirect experience, whether you directly identify with these issues or not. Removing the Serious Talks does not remove these societal issues, nor does it change people's identities. Now is the time to teach this, to cultivate awareness that the world is not perfect, that bigotry and bias and systemic injustice prevail because our generation and the generation who comes after us and the generation who comes after them will be the ones to change it. And that change starts with the first level of our education, with curriculums like Serious Talks. This is the world. This is humanity.
30 seconds remaining.
Finally, this student says, "We deserve a well-rounded education that affirms the diverse identities of our school community. A safe learning environment, safe learning community requires comprehensive and ongoing education on acceptance, diversity, equity, and inclusion inside and outside of the classroom. Serious Talks and all other curricular DEI efforts need to be expanded, not removed." Thank you.
Okay, our next five, we have Lisa Rhodes, Sharon Frey-Witzer, Meg Sowens, Sheldon Baker, and Abram Baskin. And I know some people may have left, so I'm just. You got it, you gotta give it to Chris. Don't see anyone raising their hands on Zoom. Oh, I see, Lisa has her hand raised on Zoom. Go ahead, Lisa, whenever you're ready.
Good evening, and it is evening. My name is Lisa Rhodes, and I am an elementary digital learning coach for Lexington Public Schools, a Lexington resident, and a proud parent of 2 Lexington high school graduates. Tonight, I would like to read some statements from our students who wish to remain anonymous. Thank you. This is a matter related directly to the welfare and education of the student body of the Lexington Public School System, which is an organization that I, as a student, am an active member of. It is vital for each member of our community to actively play a role in helping provide a more wholesome and inclusive education to the students in order
Lisa,
to best prepare. Yes.
Sorry, Lisa, that first statement was already read, so. Give another
I am
shot.
so sorry. All right, we're. I'm sorry.
Start at
All right.
10.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Diversity education was so important to my development in school, starting from Estabrook and throughout high school, and was critical to my success in college and as an adult. We are so privileged to have a diverse student body, and that should be celebrated in schools by giving students a framework to approach their differences with the current curriculum. I'll read one more. We need to allow diversity, inclusion, and equity to be taught from a young age. It is not forcing morals on children. It is allowing them to see and accept the whole world, to have the choice to love all human beings, not to stereotype and exclude those who are different from themselves. And finally, these serious talks are absolutely necessary, and we should not even be considering removing them from our classes. This curriculum is integral for helping students discover and accept themselves, and for our community as a whole to be more understanding and loving towards everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Next, we have Sharon. Is Sharon there? No, Sharon's not. Okay. Meg. Do we have Meg? Yeah, go ahead, Meg. Welcome, Meg. Please state your name and address for the record when you're ready.
My name is Meg Stowens, and I live at 55 North Hancock Street in Lexington. All 4 of my children went to the Lexington Public Schools. They're now 29 and 26 years old. So They finished a few years ago. They're two sets of twins. That's why it's only 2 years. And I survived. I'm here as a parent of one of them in particular. I'm here to speak because I have a child who figured out he was transgender in 6th or 7th grade. And middle school and high school were very, very difficult for him. Even though the schools were beginning to make progress towards seeing people and naming people of different sexual orientations and gender identities. But he would have so benefited from being able to see himself in a book before he was 15. He would have so benefited from having conversations when he was in elementary school, kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade. So I'm so happy to hear that you intend to put this in every school and not just the 2 or 3 that had started to work on. His classmates would have benefited well. The statistics you've seen a little bit, but the one I care about most is the one that trans kids are more than 40% of trans kids in the Lexington Public High School in the year of 2021 had considered suicide.
30 seconds remaining.
We can help mitigate these terrible risks for our kids by creating a school system which includes the naming and the presence of the kids who we have here. My child's now happy. He has a great partner and he has a good work life. I hardly dared hope for that outcome when he was in middle school and high school because we were so worried that he would get
2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Next on my list, we had Sheldon Baker, but I don't see Sheldon. So next we have Abram.
Abram Baskin, 43 Carville Avenue. I support the Serious Talks curriculum. When my daughter was in preschool, she started a friendship with a girl who has 2 moms. I have a friend whose son began transitioning in elementary school. Queer residents are our friends and neighbors. They are parents. They are students in our schools. They are elderly people at our senior center. As much as the Cancel Serious Talks supporters may wish it, we cannot ignore, deny, or hide this. Serious Talks was developed to ensure the health, safety, and psychological well-being of all students. Our children and their families have a right to feel accepted, safe, and welcome. I applaud the school committee and administration for standing your ground. When it comes to the safety and well-being of children and families, there is not a middle ground for compromise. And I'll just add that my daughter was at Bowman from 2009 to 2015, the period when Serious Talks was being developed. I'm sure all the parents who have fears about the nefarious negative impacts this can have on their students, on their children, Sarah's doing just fine, and your children will as well.
Okay, and the next 5, and I know some people may have had to go home or gone to sleep because we are at 10 p.m. right now. So just if you didn't get a chance to speak tonight, please send us your statements anyway. We want to hear from everyone. We just also have school committee business to do. So if we had turned every meeting into a 3-hour community speak, we wouldn't be able to do the business of running the school system. So we have Jesse Steigerwald, Rita Goldberg, Mabel Amar, Heather Konar, and Grace Stevens in that order. And I don't know who's still here and who has had to leave.
Finish.
All right. Welcome, Jesse. I think you know how this works, but
Yes. Is this microphone, am I in the right zone?
Yeah.
I'm Jessie Steigerwald. I live at 143 Cedar Street. I'm a former school committee member. Thank you for this very open, thorough process. giving us all time to speak. I'm reading a letter signed by 1,037 people who either live, work, teach, or go to school in Lexington. In expressing this support for the Serious Talks curriculum, we, the undersigned, affirm the importance of recognizing all students and families in all our diversity across race and ethnicity, national origin, language, faith, abilities, gender identity, romantic attraction, and other identities. Developed at Bowman Elementary School, the Serious Talks curriculum has been in place for years. Implementation is being expanded. I will paraphrase, I will lie, thank goodness, to other elementary schools in Lexington. Some people have raised concerns about what topics, especially gender identity, are discussed, at what ages, and whether the curriculum pushes a single point of view. Much of this concern is rooted in misunderstanding and the influence of forces who seek to spread fear and misinformation. We know that Lexington and Boston-based caregivers value community and the safety of our students. Building understanding will bring us together in support of all students, including those who now or might in the future identify as LGBTQIA+, and those with family and friends who so identify. Developmentally aligned discussions of these topics already exist in our
30
elementary
seconds
schools.
remaining.
Research shows that children begin recognizing differences between genders well before kindergarten, and preteen crushes are part of a typical elementary development. I'll wrap up without concluding the letter by saying again, 1,037 people have signed it. That was 3 more on my way in to speak. And thank you for a very, very open, transparent process. Thank you for staying late tonight and letting so many of us share our opinions and our value for the work you do. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Rita Goldberg, but she may have had to leave. Okay, so I think Rita had to go. So next and Rita also sent us her full statement earlier this week. Next, Mabel. Oh, I know, thank you for waiting.
Yes.
And just for the people waiting, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people left to go on the list after me.
I'm going to talk fast too. I always talk fast. Lexington
Well.
School is excellent. I did move 3,000 miles from Sacramento to this Lexington School. So, but we cannot depend on the school only. We as parents, and now I'm grandparents, we need to talk to our children when they are young at home. And my grandchildren, I talk to them now when I see them. We can't just depend on Dr. Jekyll and all those good, excellent educators. Okay, I'm going to read to you a poem. I did not write this, but it's also about serious talk. It's by this Lebanese American, 1922. It's called Children. And his name is Kaheli Gabriel. You guys know him. Okay. Oh, okay, you guys know. I'm not educated. Okay, your children are not your children. They may come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls. It's very long. I'm not going to finish, but if any of our children that were born, unfortunately, we still have labels for them. Let's love them. Do not disown them. Let's take care of them.
Next, we have Heather, who I believe is on Zoom. And I know Heather has younger kids at home, so I really appreciate you staying up so late. So Ms. Kate, did you find Heather? She's raising her hand. There we go.
All right.
Welcome, Heather. Please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. My name is Heather Konar. I live at 37 Grove Street. I want to express my support of the Serious Talks curriculum. I have found the curriculum to dovetail beautifully with other elements that have been baked into the curriculum, such as emphasizing kindness. The children write about kindness. Teachers warmly name it and call it out when they see it. Everyone is prompted to think about how to be kind. It's a beautiful thing. Similarly, serious talks help children develop their awareness of our similarities and differences and pair the awareness with kindness and empathy for others. I have found it to be perfectly suited to the ages of my kids. I have 3 children at Estabrook, 2 of whom are trans. They were aware of their trans identities in kindergarten. It's critically important for my children and for other children who have backgrounds that may differ from the majority to be seen and accepted for who they are in all their intersecting identities. Being able to openly explore identity and difference with their peers is essential to this process. To paraphrase Frederick Douglass, it is easier to raise strong children than to repair broken adults. Serious Talks contributes to a strong foundation of self-esteem
30 seconds remaining.
and community orientation for all of our children. Thank you.
And I'm just gonna quickly run down the rest of the list while Grace comes to the podium. We have Irina Fainfold, Amy Garbus, Megan Klein-Hattori, Liz Ryan, Tom Diaz, and Jodiah Finnegan, in that order.
Hi, I'm Grace Stevens, 314 Bedford Street, and I am a transgender woman. I've lived in Lexington since 1977, now 46 years. I'm also the father of 3 now adult children, now in their 40s, who were well educated through the Lexington school system from the mid-80s to 2001. Today, 2 of them have their own master's degrees in education and are teachers. Looking back, I know the education they received gave them their ability and their love to learn. This has certainly helped keep my family whole when I transitioned in 2011. A few years ago, I published a small book that contained guidelines on how to be human. One guideline is acceptance must precede understanding. Understanding may lead to knowing. Knowing is never complete. I'm certain that my kids were lucky enough to learn this in the Lexington schools. And today the curriculum of serious conversations appears to be the cornerstone of that learning. Serious conversations are not exclusive to acceptance of gender variant people like me. And like me, who knew very early in their lives exactly who they are. It teaches acceptance and the awareness of all diversity and the desire to understand. There were no serious conversations back in the 50s and 60s when I was young and had no words to describe.
30 seconds remaining.
It took me nearly 60 years to learn these words and do something about it. Serious conversations teaches acceptance that leads to understanding and the first steps in knowing. I hope the kids in Lexington today will continue to get their education that teaches them to love to learn. It's up to you.
Next we have Irina, then Amy, and then Megan. So again, I'm not sure how many people have gone to sleep already this evening. Do you see anyone waiting out there? Oh, Jody's out there. Yep, so Irina, Amy Garbus, Megan Klein-Hattori.
Jody is here.
Liz Ryan, I know Liz sent us her full statement earlier, so she may have decided not to speak since she signed up a few days ago. Tom Diaz, I believe he sent us his full statement as well, so you can read that. So Jody it is.
Good evening. I'm Jodiah Finnegan from 5 Kilo Farm Way. I think that I'm the only Black person that stood up today. And I want to say
I think being from the marginalized community means sharing with other people from the marginalized. You know, if we don't all stand up together, we sink, right? So if you're not a white male, we can be in this together. That's how I look at it. I look at it, all of our marginalized communities should be standing up together behind us. That's all I want to say.
And just a reminder for people who still didn't hear me the multiple times I said it. At some point today, I don't remember exactly what time it was, I did download the signups. So I see that people are still signing up like during this meeting right now. So if you signed up after that time, because I am a mom and an educator, and at some point, you know, you've got to figure out what else you do in the day. I did download it. So I had a clear list coming into tonight so that everybody who signed up well in advance was able to speak. But if you signed up at some point today, and I don't remember exactly what time I cut it off, but you can send us your comments. That would be great. I know I think there are only a handful of people who didn't get to speak who were on the sign up, but so please send it to the school committee because we really do want to hear everybody talk. But again, we have lots of staff members here too, and it's 10:15 on the first day of school. So
We got this.
So I think we have already addressed our unfinished business. We are going to table the action items. With that, I will take a motion to adjourn. Sadi, and a second. Ms. Lanahan, all in favor? All opposed? Okay, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you for everyone online.